Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Hi, welcome. Welcome to our Isle of Wight Creative Industries Conference 2024. Yes, whoop! Yeah, go on. Yeah, go for it. That's brilliant. That's setting the tone for the day. I like that. My name is Georgia Newman. I'm the Deputy Director for Creative Island, which is the cultural development agency for the Isle of Wight. And I also lead one of the main strands of activities, which is the Isle of Wight Creative Network. And just by a show of hands, can I ask him, who's a member of the Isle of Wight Creative Network? Oh. That's lovely. One big happy family. Lovely. So before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. There are toilet facilities through the door just past the kitchen. There's also a note on there. If you keep walking, there's another co-working area that's a quiet space. So if you've gone in there, you've gone too far. And there's no fire alarms, I think, that are going to happen today. So if there are, please assemble outside onto the car park through the main entrance, which you came through. And if you can put your phones on silent, we would be very much appreciated. Thank you. Please feel free to tag us in any social media posts that you do, IW Creative Network or Creative Island or both. And yes, feel free to take pictures, that's fine. I say that with the abundance of cameras in the room. I hope you don't mind. We are live streaming and recording to our YouTube channel, which is IW Creative Network. So anyone in the world can be watching right now. Probably my mum. Hi, Mum. And so we're utterly thrilled that Skinny Mammoth media team here are providing this service for us. So thank you so much to them. And if you require any access requirements throughout the day, just feel free to yell at me or one of my colleagues, Sam Tatty, could you wave, please? Our comms manager for Creative Island. And also Cllr Paul, waving as well, thank you, our CEP leader. And also we have got our Building 41 team here as well, somewhere, Ottilie and Ella. If you could please wave, they're at the back as well. So that's all of us. And so why we're here today, we're here because the Isle of Wight Creative Network is a membership of over 180 and growing in numbers, different practices for creatives on the Isle of Wight. And it exists because it's a way of being able to support the creative ecosystem here on the island. And we do that through a special development programme which enables creators to thrive and become more sustainable. And we have one-to-one sessions with mentors and creative advisors. We have training sessions, networking events, away days off the island to visit other cultural spaces and people and be inspired and become more connected with one another. And it's very much aligned with the cultural strategy here, which is called All the Wonder. And it's been about over a year now since we launched it here in this very building in Cowes. Sorry, just for live streaming purposes, we're here in Cowes on the Isle of Wight. So if you haven't read it, please do. It's also downloadable from our website, creativeisland.org. And with it, today is a bit of a milestone for us. So we are looking at exploring themes like enterprise and innovation and collaboration. So we have some amazing speakers here today, and we are opening the floor for you guys as well later. Yeah, you can't escape it. Your participation is required. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So we need you to stay with us throughout the whole day. It would be so great for you to be fully involved. And we've got a fantastic workshop as well being facilitated as well as in this first part of the day. So firstly, we'll have Ian Boyd from the Common Space with his provocation of the day, and then leading to our amazing keynote speaker, Rosie Wolfenden, MBE, of Tatty Devine, talking about her humble beginnings here on the island through to creating the most amazing jewellery brand on the planet. And then we have Creative Catalyst Innovation with Lorraine Jones and Dawn Odoi, sorry, and leading us through this workshop which I won't go into because they will reveal all very soon. The boards have something to do with it. So it will take place over in that area there. And if you're watching online, it's perfectly fine. We'll be posting up the task questions onto the YouTube channel as well. And again, it's recorded. So if you're watching back later, you can still take part. And then we'll have a lovely lunch and come back together. And we've got some brilliant speakers announcing some new initiatives and a panel discussion as well with one of our creative advisors, Alys Scott Hawkins, and also Rosie Wolfenden, and also Jan Frith, a visual artist here on the island, and Plumb, a theatre maker on the Isle of Wight, and also members of the Creative Network, discussing the themes that are going to come out for today, the themes around innovation and collaboration and enterprise. So no pressure, guys. It's going to be great. And then we open the floor to you. So I think that's probably enough from me. So with that, let's get started with Ian Boyd with our provocation of today. Creativity is not enough. Thank you, everyone. Ian.
Thank you. Can I get the first slide? Great, thank you. Right, thank you. Thank you, Georgia. So Georgia asked for something provocative. And so I've tried not to be too gratuitous about it. I do mean this stuff. But I also have to apologize for the extraordinary irony of leaning so heavily on AI imagery, such as the paucity of my own creative ability. But if you can overlook that, I'd be very grateful. So creativity is not enough. But what I mean by that is, if, as we do, we cut creativity out of the fabric of what I would call social hope, it just becomes cultural litter. We just brush it into the corners of studios and galleries. It's crunchy underfoot. And we've disposed of it, and it's not really reusable creativity. You can recycle it in a sense, but it becomes ingenuity. And there's a massive global oversupply of ingenuity and an incredible scarcity of creativity as a raw material. And it's because we waste it, and we waste it for all sorts of reasons. So at the moment, I think we litter our cultural environment with abused creative resource, creative capital, and we replace it with expedient ingenuity. And I think that's a catastrophe. It's a catastrophe for the island. It's a catastrophe for the world. And what has happened is that I think we've forgotten that creativity is really a bridge. It's a process that links imagination, a word that we just don't use anymore, don't hear it at all. My friend and colleague Nigel George uses it a lot, and in fact invented a thing called the Imagination Refinery that really exists. It truly exists in Gosport. Wonderful thing. Not on the island, but it exists in Gosport. It was invented on the island. There's a story in that. But it's a bridge between imagination, by which I mean imagining better futures, the ability to imagine a hopeful place that we are moving towards, a better possibility. And that creativity is the engine that takes us into the change that then generates that. And if you don't have change and new things in your cultural environment, you don't have a cultural environment. It's just dead matter. It's nothing. So creativity is not being put into the service of generating the new, of taking imagination of new futures into the generation of change towards new futures. And my God, we need that. And that's a journey of hope. It's a journey of optimism, which we also need in troubled times. But we're not doing it. Instead, we're standing on the bridge. We've forgotten it's got ends. We spend all our time on this bridge called creativity. It's become an end in itself. We've turned creativity into a beginning and an end. We don't need to visit either of the islands that it's supposed to bridge. And so we're failing in our use of this extraordinary and scarce resource. And that's where we end up, on just an endless treadmill of project funding, badged as creativity. And that machine is what turns creativity into ingenuity, because you're required by your funder to take the last project that you painted red and paint it blue instead. And now that's innovation, and they'll fund you. And the funders look on, and creativity is commoditized through that process. Projects are commoditized creativity that has been debased, essentially, because funders aren't going to pick risky stuff. Why would they pick risky stuff? So the funding machine just perpetuates ingenious recycling of the same old ideas. My God, how many times do we winkle out the hard to reach from their caves and insist that they do things? I'd be hard to reach if I kept being dragged out, taken on walks, told to crayon things. I'd be impossible to reach. And then at the end, we boot them back in a ditch and carry on, don't we? Because we need the next bit of funding. Everything is expedient. Everything is being used up by that machine. And so the possibility of using it as a stepping stone to something better is lost, because you just go back to the beginning, painted purple this time, or brown, or whatever it might be, and off you go again. Off we go again. We all do this. It's how it works. And it's just driving creativity into increasingly expedient and ingenious ways of saying the same thing, doing the same thing. Meanwhile, the world around us stays exactly the same. It doesn't change at all. So if you look out of the window of that horrifying room, there's nothing there at all. So the cultural environment that should be providing persistent, directional pressure for change, this is a Darwinian conversation, and your fantastic new idea has traction because it's a mutation in the boring, stagnant world that we inhabit, and it's picked up by that persistent, directional pressure from a cultural environment that's alive, and takes us to the next step. There's nothing out there. You look out the window, there's nothing there at all. So it's just you doing a project and then stopping a project and then doing a project and then stopping a project. Meanwhile, the environment around us has vanished. The cultural landscape is blank and smooth and homogeneous, and there's just these little blips of project activity as far as the eye can see. And that's where we've ended up. And I think it's truly a catastrophe. Now, you may very well say, well, I don't want all that loaded on me. I just want to do the thing I do. That's fine, thank you very much. But the thing is, you're part of that. We're all part of that, because we're either perpetuating the homogeneous nothingness of a cultural, meaningless landscape, or we're generating something that has enough traction that we can drag a different approach to cultural landscape management with us and drive change as a consequence. You're all part of that. If you make something amazing, you've done something hopeful, inspiring, and you put it in the world and you've demanded attention to it. But if the landscape around us isn't geared up to respond to that, then it's forgotten, and we do it again and we do it again. So we've forgotten how to imagine better futures. It's absolutely essential that we have some sense that there can be better futures and all sorts of possibilities that we can be moving towards. And instead, we're haunted by this toxic nostalgia that the island specialises in. The island only looks backwards. It only looks back. It just says things like, wasn't it great when the beaches were full? Oh my God, how many times have you heard that? Was it great? Probably, I don't care, I'm not interested. So I don't know if you've heard of hauntology. It's a wonderful kind of term. But it's alive and well. It is the lifeblood of the island. We are just haunted by things that could have been but never were, because we always look back and just pick hopeful visions of the future from 1970 instead and say, oh no, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, it would have been great, but we're now here. What's the hopeful vision from here? We can't do it because we've allowed this smoothing out of the cultural landscape around us. And consequently, and unwittingly, it's not a malicious thing or a deliberate thing. Politically, it's a lazy, stupid thing to do. We've created this Office of Lost Futures. It's colossal. It's the biggest building on the island, and it's full of possibilities that never were realised. because we haven't allowed a cultural engine, a cultural ecology to pick up the best of what we do. And it's fine for there to be massive redundancy in what we do, for us to be doing 100 different things all focused in the same direction, trying to do the same thing in 100 different ways. That's brilliant, because 2 or 3 of them, one of them will work. That's absolutely fine. But why do we insist on rationalizing everything? How many times have you heard on the island, well, it's great, but so many people are doing so many things. Well, all we need to do is to marshal them into one single entity so that there is a controlling brain that makes sure there isn't repetition in the world. There isn't duplication of ideas. That's the problem with the island. There's too much kind of stuff going on. No one talks to one another. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. That's the brilliance of the island, is this constant redundancy of possibility being churned out by people trying the same thing in a million different ways. What we have not done is to create the cultural environment that makes the most of that activity. And instead of doing that, we go to the people who are doing amazing stuff saying, yeah, you're doing that, but you're also doing that. We can only have one, I'm sorry. Well, that's ridiculous. We need to be focusing on what's surrounding this amazing engine of work so that it picks up and moves us on and supports, in fact encourages that kind of massive redundancy in the best possible way. Redundancy is a brilliant thing of possibility, churning out possibilities. Anyway, that's the bad news, that we're stuck in this horrible, endless machine of project repetition and stupid ingenuity when we should be being creatively and inspiringly making better futures for ourselves. But there is hope, and in fact, there's more than hope. There is revolution. Because the island specializes in the 2 great revolutionary movements. One is ecology, and the other is art. And we are blessed with massive reserves of both on the Isle of Wight. So we have these 2 extraordinary insurgent forces. Now we just need to deploy them together and well, and they won't see us coming. And why won't they see us coming? The reason is that the suits, the politicians, the funders to some extent, the funders, trivialize what we do to an extraordinary degree. So they see ecologists as tramps and hipsters who commune with doves, occasionally find newts. There is actually, and I love this, sometimes in a room, there's a certain frisson of terror when you present yourself as an ecologist, because they believe you have a kind of pagan magic that you could at any point bring down that plague of frogs. I would if I could. I don't like frogs, it would be toads. But that on the one hand. And on the other hand, can you just do a logo? Can you just pimp my website? Can you just do a leaflet? And all of this wrapped up in the kind of vocational, sympathetic identity that means you'll do it for free. Because you love it. Oh, you love it so much. You love it so much you'll starve. That's how much you love it. And money would just debase the currency of creativity. Surely, I'm doing you a favor by not ever paying you anything. And we're both in the same camp. But because of that, and because of the trivialization of ecology and it being turned into nature-based solutions, meaningless corporate trivia, putting beehives on inner city roofs and calling it conservation. I can't tell you how much I hate this nonsense. But it is turned into a kind of extraordinary award-winning brilliance. And that's what dominates conversations. That's what feeds into local politics. They say, no, we need beehives on roofs. We don't need wholesale systemic ecological renewal. We need beehives on roofs. And it's the same with a cultural engine of change. Yeah, well, we'll do a strategy. If you could do the cover, that'd be brilliant. If you could do that for us, that'd be marvelous. Thank you very much. Content, no, don't worry about that. No, we've got that covered. Because it'll be the same content we wrote in 1870. And I pick 1870 very particularly because we specialize in a mid-Victorian mindset that has not changed in 150 years. And I point you towards the currently emerging economic strategy for the Isle of Wight and the wider Solent as evidence, because it says exactly the same stuff as existed in 1870. The defense industry, maritime engineering, tourism, and a kind of patronage. It was the Royals then, it's second homes now. That's the model then, it's the model now. And it's wheeled out and said, oh God, yeah, these are the things, my God, how did we not notice it's these? What are you talking about? It's been those same things forever. Now, I'm not saying get rid of those, because you can't. It's hard baked into island life. There's not an island on the planet that doesn't have that same set. But the new world, the new economics, the new change is ecology and cultural industries in the broader sense. I would say ecology and art. Together, systemically driving change and infecting all of that other old stuff and renewing it. And creating a cultural landscape that's interested in you and what you're doing. And it wants to pick up the best of what you're doing and move it on. It's interested in the worst of what you're doing too. It's interested in everything you're doing. It's alive. You look out the window, it's an extraordinary cultural landscape. It's not just this empty wilderness that we currently have. Okay, last few slides. Am I okay, George? We're running over time. Back to normal slides. Sorry about this crunching handbrake turn. But this is part of the solution, because ecology and art meet in the UNESCO World Biosphere. The whole of the Isle of Wight and all of its inshore waters, that's nearly 1,000 square kilometres, that's all of the Solent, touches 3 counties. This extraordinary accolade that is based on the Isle of Wight, a UNESCO World Biosphere Reserve, 7 in the UK, 3 in England, 750 in the world. That's not many, 125 countries. We're part of this amazing global network predicated on ecology and art, essentially. On the diversity of the biota, and that includes us, of course, and on the diversity of our cultural distinctiveness. Those two are considered massive resources for fashioning a new negotiated settlement between people, place, and wildlife that points in the right direction, that is resilient and sustainable. That's what the world is saying, and yet still we trivialize these extraordinary assets we have. And we allow that to perpetuate politically, financially. So this is the way we're going to change this, but only if we are radical, and I would say revolutionary in our outlook, determined that we will imagine better futures and we will put creativity to work in reaching them. One of the 9 principles of the biosphere is particularly about local distinctiveness. Local distinctiveness is a term coined by Common Ground. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Common Ground. They've kind of become a project team in the West Country now. They always were. But in their heyday, and look on the archive bit of the Common Ground website is all I would say. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable stuff. They invented a definition of local distinctiveness, sense of place. They produced extraordinary works. They were just amazing. But the idea that that is a resource, that local distinctiveness really matters and is a source of new value. Ecological health and cultural well-being embedded in local distinctiveness. And it is in the geography of the Isle of Wight. Now, I'll put that map up because we are in the middle of writing a thing called the Local Nature Recovery Strategy. So this is a new spatial plan for wildlife on the Isle of Wight, and every other county, 48 counties, all doing this simultaneously in England. So underneath those purple lines, which I'll explain in a moment, is the habitat map of the Isle of Wight. It is extraordinarily complicated. It is a mix of small habitat fragments all clumped together. And species use that amazing diversity of little fragments in the best way they can, because most species can't leave the island. They're stuck at the edges. So we've got this amazing mix of little bits and pieces of habitat that are pulled together and optimized by the species that we have. And we're able to intervene in that and make that better. So it's a vast, complex, heterogeneous world of diverse habitats creating massive natural capital. The purple lines are the parishes. That's the human and social equivalent of those habitats. There are 33 parishes on the Isle of Wight. Some of them have enormously long time depth. They go back to the Saxon mother parishes, Arreton, Newchurch. Some were invented in the last 15 years, Ryde. Not Ryde, but Ryde Town Council. So it's a live human and social and cultural geography that we ignore. Again, we trivialise. We treat this as unimportant, as a bit of a joke. Parish council meetings, they're hilarious. Yeah, they are hilarious. Absolutely, I totally agree. Do you know how much money the parishes spend every year, the 33 parishes of the Isle of Wight? £7 million. And it will be more next year, and it will be more the year after, and it will be more the year after. There is no ombudsman. There are massive discretions and powers at the level of a parish that do not exist at the level of a county. The Isle of Wight Council is very severely regulated. A parish can raise whatever money it wants. I'm not suggesting it should, but it can. It can ask for whatever it wants to do whatever it wants. So in terms of an engine within which we can fuse ecology and culture, artistic practice, local distinctiveness into 33 different ways of telling the story of a life on the island, unbelievable. With £7 million. Now, of course, all we ever hear about in terms of the way that money is spent is toilets and grass cutting. And you have to do that stuff, yes, understood. But we can do so much more. So there is a complex natural geography. There is a complex human geography. There's a cultural landscape and an ecological landscape, overlapping, asking for the same intervention, which is to, at a super hyper local level, fuse an ecological story and a cultural story, to imagine a better future and to put creativity to use in moving towards it. And that is what we can do. And that makes the island extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. Not a poor relation in the Solent at all, or anywhere else for that matter. It has something to say to the world that the world wants to hear. The moment we say, yeah, kind of woken up to the fact that we haven't changed since 1870, we're going to do this now, people will listen. Money will arrive, and it's important to talk about that. It will become a beacon that will attract attention. The biosphere is the communication across the world that will enable that to happen. Two geographies fused into one mission. And our superpower is assembly. Assemblages of habitats, assemblages of species, assemblies of people. This room. Where else can you, at a moment's notice, get an architect, a house builder, a sculptor, someone working in environmental education, and just click your fingers and they're in the room all at once talking about something amazing? We can do that here. So the power of assembly and the power of assemblage is massive. It is our superpower. So moving towards a beacon of change where creativity is properly put to work is through the idea of assembly at the level of local distinctiveness, at the level of local community. So we can fashion change. Let's stop wasting our creativity, grinding it into ingenuity for the purposes of expedient funding. We've all got to live, of course. And let's take a different journey, imagine a better future, and bring it absolutely into reality.
Thank you so much, Ian. So I should stay sat. Sorry, it's the focus lines are here, so that's why I have to sit every time. Everyone has to. Thank you so much, Ian. I can't tell you how amazing that was, and yeah, hauntology. That's a new one for me, but brilliant. And Ian Boyd from the Common Space, based in Sandown. Thank you. I would like to now welcome our keynote speaker of the day, and I didn't actually realise this until recently, but Rosie Wolfenden, MBE and managing director and co-founder of Tatty Devine, grew up here on the island, and I think that was such a remarkable insight, and just to find out a little bit about your beginnings, but to lead on the most amazing, incredible, wearable art brand on this planet that is called Tatty Devine. And so I think about collaboration quite heavily in what Rosie does, and with a few names like Gilbert and George, Pulp, Beetlejuice, Rachel McLean, some amazing collaborations. So please welcome to the stage, put your hands together for Rosie Wolfenden.
on? No? Yes. Yes, they said put it close to your mouth, so I will. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ian. That was amazing and very thought-provoking. And yes, I shall try and now bring you all back into the room of creativity now. So I am Rosie, as Georgia said, from Tatty Devine. Does anyone not know about Tatty Devine? Right, a few people. So I'll just give you a little snapshot. I'm going to go through our story and sort of take you through the years of what we've done. But basically, we're celebrating 25 years this year, and we've been making bold, fun, original jewellery for 25 years. And it's become its own sort of world that people dive into and love. We've got a store in London. But we did have humble beginnings, so I'm going to start at the very beginning. So, yes, I was brought up on the Isle of Wight, and I left in '95 to go off to art school. Went to Kingston, where I was with Sophie Honeybourne, who's got a jeweller and vintner, Sed Wells, who runs AJ Wells. So I was, there was a few of us who had left the Isle of Wight. There was no art college on the Isle of Wight, so off we trotted to London. And from Kingston, I went and got into the Chelsea School of Art. Now, I love this slide because it's in black and white, and it does feel like a century ago, essentially. This was 1996, and I went there to study fine art. I wanted to be a painter, just wanted to be an artist. And I met my now business partner, best friend, and collaborator, Harriet Vine. So this is me and Harriet when we were 20, I guess. So throughout we were painting. We were deeply immersed in a very imaginative and creative environment. And we kind of ended up living together and did a lot of stuff together. We went out, went to parties together and made stuff together. And we were constantly making outfits to wear. We didn't want to be like anybody else. We wanted to be different. We wanted to be original. We didn't want to be told what to wear, what to look like, what to do, what art to make. We just wanted to be our own people. And one day, basically, we were coming home late at night, and we passed a skip full of sample books from an upholstery shop. You know, the kind of thing you'd flick through to try and choose what colour your sofa is going to be. And we dragged them all home, all 14 bin bags. They put them under our bed. We couldn't pass a skip or a bin or anything without rifling through it. So much so they used to pass leaflets around at college on vermin's disease because they knew that we were all being in and out of, skips, finding materials to make stuff from, because no one had any money. There was no money at all. When Harriet and I graduated, we thought we'll go maybe do an MA. I don't know. We applied for the Royal College. All sorts, didn't get in, on the reserve list, never mind. But in that process, we pulled out these sample books of leather and we started cutting them into wristbands. It was 1999. We were, there was a big sort of 80s cultural nostalgia, and we thought we can be like Aha, we can wear leather wristbands. This is great, we love it. So we wore them out and everyone was like, God, that's so cool, we want one. And we thought, well, let's just do a market store. We've got no money. I was working part-time in a vintage store. Harriet was working part-time at the Camden Arts Centre. And we went and did Camden Market, and I've still got the receipt. It was £8 for the day. It was £19.99, and we made £50. And that was great. And we were £50 better off than we'd been in the morning. Well, £42 better off. We split it in half. We were happy. We then went and did Portobello Market, and we made sort of £200. We were selling these wristbands, £10 a piece, and people liked them. And I'd actually, when I was a kid, I was brought up in a hotel in Bonchurch, but I remember the pastry chef was really lovely and always took me under her wing. We used to go and do Ventnor Market on a Saturday. I'd sell my scrunchies and friendship bracelets when I was about 9. So I always had this sort of thing in me that I loved selling. I loved putting the things I'd made out in front, talking to people, telling them why they should wear them, telling them how much I love them, and, essentially selling. So when Harriet and I started doing market stalls, we got a real kick out of it. We were selling stuff, and we still wanted to go to art school. We were still waiting to hear whether we were going to do an MA. We didn't really know what was going to happen. We wanted to be artists. That was our whole raison d'etre. And I love what you said, Ian, about, you know, sort of the Isle of Wight is this space that we can make our own, because I felt that with London. It was surrounded by the M25. It's the same size as the Isle of Wight, and I felt like I was in my own ecosystem. And I think that's quite transferable as an idea. So we were making stuff, and we kind of got a bit experimental. We were just sewing gems on bits of leather that we'd found. I was working, as I said, in this vintage shop called Steinberg and Tolkien, and I was wearing this huge thing on my head that we'd made out of a belt we found in a charity shop, some ribbons we'd found in a haberdashery shop, and some bits and pieces that were just in our sewing baskets. And this woman walked in and said, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Where's it from?" And I said, "Oh, my company made it." And the woman said, "Oh, that's amazing. I'm from Vogue, and we're just trying to work out what to put in our Millennium issue. Can you bring your collection to Vogue House on Monday?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, no problem." And I rang up Harriet and I said, "Harriet, we've got to take our collection to Vogue on Monday." She went, "We don't have a collection." And I was like, "But we'll just make one, it's fine." And so we literally spent the whole weekend making stuff that we wanted to wear. We went to Vogue, showed them the stuff, and it was belts, it was wristbands, and it ended up in the Millennium Vogue. This is Erin O'Connor wearing one of our wristbands. Very tiny detail, but it felt so good. We were in the Millennium issue of Vogue. We were like art graduates. We were literally, you know, we went to Chelsea, we were walking up and down the King's Road in overalls covered in paint. We were the least glamorous people on the planet, but we were excited. So that kind of really boosted our confidence. And, you know, I'll just say right now, like, one of the greatest collaborations, really, of Tatty Devine is mine and Harriet's, you know, relationship. This is a picture of us on the left. We were in Vogue. Again, like, Vogue sort of were really instrumental in a way. It's been fun watching that series on Disney in the 90s, Vogue, because it was really like an exciting hotbed of imagination and creativity, but not really anymore. I don't know, maybe it is. But we this is us in our shop window. They did a little piece on us. But, you know, we've always worked really, really well together. And from day one, Harriet literally had the cutting mat, and I had the fax machine. That was my piece of equipment. And, you know, Harriet was making, and I was selling. But we totally got each other and totally were obsessed by what we were making. We wanted to make things that didn't exist. That was our whole raison d'etre. We didn't want to look like anyone else. We wanted to make things that just weren't in the world, making something new. Oh, the plectrum. So Harriet was living with loads of like boys and girls that were in bands, and there were guitar plectrums everywhere, wherever you went, just trails of them. So we just start picking them up and drilling holes into them and putting them on necklaces. And again, people were just like, "That's fantastic, we want that." And we were charging £18 back in 2000, which was quite a lot of money, but people were really loving it. And quite quickly we realised we couldn't really be working in our bedrooms anymore, because we were having, because that's where we were working, both in our bedrooms. We were having like buyers from shops in Paris knocking on our door, and we'd be quickly taking the knickers off the radiator and, you know, trying to make it presentable and acceptable, because, you know, we were students. It was all quite basic stuff. We did a lot of random marketing. When we kind of got a new fax machine, we sent out finger puppets of ourselves with a new fax number. Very random, but this resulted in a piece of press in Sleaze Nation, which was a really sort of hit magazine at the time. But we just loved using our imagination to do ridiculous things that didn't cost anything, and sending it out into the world. And I'd literally just go into magazine shops and write down the telephone numbers printed on and they're still there actually. You can open a magazine, there'll be a phone number, you can ring it up and you can ask to speak to someone and say, "Can I come and show you what I make?" You know, it was that sort of simple. And I think to an extent it still is. We applied to do London Fashion Week. By this point, we'd found a studio to be in, and we were making just enough money. And we sort of just stopped doing the market stall because we realised on the market that we couldn't be selling to shops and be on the market stall. It was too confusing. We had, this is pre-internet, so we would be doing Portobello Market, and we met all sorts of buyers, like Urban Outfitters came and ordered from us. And suddenly we were like, oh gosh, you want to buy this £10 wristband, you're going to put it in your shop for £30. We can't charge £30. And we sort of started accidentally really wholesaling. That was like a whole new thing for us. We didn't know anything about business or wholesale, nothing at all. But we were making just enough money from these orders to find the rent to find a space. And we knew we were sort of around Brick Lane area in East London, and we knew we wanted to stay there. So we walked around and around, and eventually found a sort of very derelict shop, the very north end where nobody went, and the rent was £70 a week. We thought, well, that's just about doable. That's 7 wristbands. So we did it, and then we also applied to do this London Fashion Week, which at the time was essentially a trade show, and that was where we started selling quite internationally. It gave us the platform to put these incredible, crazy things we were making, put them on a table and let people buy them, essentially. This was a belt, a rainbow belt, and we created this giant pearl necklace box for it to be in. But we made we made it. It's kind of ridiculous. This is us in front of our shop. So we're well known now for laser cutting acrylic, and I'll come on to how we sort of discovered that. But we were making all sorts of things. This budgie brooch was 12 inches tall, and people bought them. I mean, it's and this Harriet was cutting this out with her with the bandsaw, and it was a photocopy that we essentially just PVA glued onto hardboard and cut out, and we rubber stamped it on the back and said, that's £30, thank you very much. We were having quite a lot of fun. This was our shop. So I guess this is another form of collaboration. Being from art school, all of our friends, all of our kind of peers, everyone was a creative. We didn't actually know anyone that wasn't a creative. So people were either artists or filmmakers or illustrators or graphic designers or textile artists or fashion designers, or, or they were copywriting for magazines about fashion, or they were making, videos for music videos, that kind of thing. So every month we were kind of, at first, we've got this space and everything we make is quite, not that small, 12 inches big, but, it wasn't like we were making huge pieces of artwork. So we thought, let's just let our friends use our space to show their work. So from very early on, we just let our friends use our studio as a gallery. We wouldn't charge them. We'd managed to get some free beer back in the day where they were literally like Absolute Vodka, Beck's. They were literally giving it away to place, events and things. So every month we'd get totally smashed in our shop. I'd spend every Friday of the last Friday of the month sweeping up all the cigarette butts in the shop. But this amazing crowd of people were just instrumental, I think, in spreading the word and the love. There was pre-social media. It was that sense of collaboration, networking, sharing imagination, sharing resources, and people like in this picture were collaborating with us early on, helping us do drawings, which we'll come on to, which, when we started laser cutting, we'd never used a computer. Like at Chelsea School of Art, there was a computer in the library, and there was a computer in Combined Media, which was where you made video art. So it was really it felt like the Stone Age, basically. But all these people were part of, and I guess, everyone in this room, you're all here and everyone's got skills and ideas and, the absolutely critical thing is that we share them. We got into knitting. This is me and Harriet in doll formation. So we were really just, really experimenting, making all sorts of things. We were screen printing to make tape cassette purses, and a whole host of stuff. We were really experimenting, trying to work out what it was that we wanted to make, how to express ourselves. And right from the beginning, like I said, it was about making something that didn't exist, but it was also about making things that people could wear to express themselves, say who they were, what they loved, what was special about them, what they wanted to communicate to the world that maybe they couldn't articulate, but they could definitely, kind of wear and show the world who they were. This was quite an amazing moment. So throughout this time, bearing in mind that Harriet and I had absolutely no, network. We didn't have, we weren't Daddy didn't work in advertising and introduce us to everyone. We literally knew nothing or no one. But Vogue slightly fell in love with us, and I guess our naivety and our we had no connections. But Vogue just kept borrowing what we were making and putting them in their fashion cupboard and using them. We made all of these keyboard belts, and there was this sort of this. I love this image because this is Cindy Sherman, and Cindy Sherman was invited by Vogue to do her clown series, which was a series of photographs that they published of her as a clown, and she was just let to, she could just roam Vogue and find stuff to wear. She found all these keyboard belts in the cupboard, so she decided to wrap herself in them. And I was on a trip to Tokyo about 15 years ago and walked into the Dover Street Market there, and this image was blown up, 10 meters high, and it was just such a special moment because you just realise that you put yourself out into the world and stuff happens, and you can find yourself in the future in places that you'd never ever imagine. Real sort of dreams coming true moments. Being an art student, Cindy Sherman was really inspiring. So in 2001, we got a grant. They existed back then. From our local business centre. So we were going to the East London Small Business Centre, which, I think you've got the Chamber of Commerce here now. It's probably the nearest thing. Somewhere you can go and get advice. When we started taking orders and we didn't have the money to buy the materials, they'd help us get a bridging loan, that kind of stuff. And they taught us so much about business because we knew nothing. But we got this grant to go to New York on a research trip. And off we went to New York. It was a week. It was fabulous. We ate a lot of pizza and I wasn't quite 21. Or was I? No, I was 21. But yeah, we didn't have ID. No one believed that we were old enough to drink. It was all very weird. We'd never been to America before. But we stumbled across this place, Canal Plastics, in just on the edge of Chinatown. And we walked in, and bearing in mind that we were making a lot of things like out of found objects, like plectrums, the leather, just anything that we could find, we found in this shop all these shapes cut out. There was little poodles, which I guess was for a poodle parlour. There was cocktail glasses. There was all sorts of shapes. And we were just like, wow, this is amazing. We bought loads and took them back to London. And we made them into jewellery. We made the poodle into a brooch. Really simple. Took that to London Fashion Week. People were just like, wow, this is amazing. And we were like, we know, it's so good. And it's bizarre because it's just, a cut-out shape, but no one had ever seen anything like it as jewellery in the modern consciousness of culture. So it really started something. And this was one of the first collections we made. We wanted it to be like fuzzy felts, very nostalgic. Sorry, Ian. And then we didn't know how to use a computer. We didn't know how to use Illustrator. But friends in that picture from that party, they came along and showed us. And we were like, can you draw us a Hoover and a caravan and a bunny? And they did. And we made these pieces. And again, everyone absolutely loved it. And it was like a next step on. And what was sort of brilliant about where our studio was in East London, and I think it's probably again similar on the island, was everything was within reach. So on Brick Lane there was a shop selling acrylic. Don't know if we got one of those. There was haberdashery shops, there was finding shops, there was stationery shops, there was, we'd go around and just buy all the bits and pieces we needed. But we also found an architectural model maker who had a laser cutter, and it was kind of quite new technology. And we went up to him and we said, do you think you could cut out these shapes so we can make jewellery? And he was like, yeah, I guess so. And it was all just going very, very well, to the point where he was saying, look, girls, I've just had to take on a new employee to cut all your stuff for you. I think you should get a machine. And we were like, no, they were £25,000. We were like, no, but he went, you've spent that this year. we were spending like £1,000 a week getting him to cut stuff. So we basically, let's just see, went and bought our first machine, which we called Eva Edna from Will o' the Wisp. And I never forget it arriving in the shop, and I walked in and Harriet was holding a thing. She said, this is the motherboard. And she was basically reading all the instructions, learning how to use it. And it really, it's her tool, and it's, she's become so fluent in using it and making it work for her. It works hard. And this was 2002, I think. So it did like 20 years, and we've now got a new one, but it was fabulous. But before we got the machine, the Christmas before, we decided to make name necklaces for all of our friends for Christmas. And this has actually become our best-selling product. We sell a lot of these. At the time, I guess there was like Sex and the City, and Carrie had her necklace, and there was also, we were in the East London, and there was shops that had like mother and brother as a necklace, and we just loved that sort of bringing together of cultures, and then using acrylic to make any name you wanted, any colour you wanted, with a charm, and all of our friends that we gave them to for Christmas, basically their friends would come into our shop saying, you gave my friend Mimi a necklace, can I have one? And it literally started like that, word of mouth, people wanting what we were making. And, we didn't have a huge advertising campaign or anything. It was literally word of mouth. And when there's something that people really love and want to be part of, that organic sort of momentum is really, really powerful. The lobster was one of the first sort of more less two-dimensional things that we made. I say two-dimensional, everything we make is more or less two-dimensional because the laser cutter cuts in 2 dimensions. But what we started doing was articulating things and using sort of jewellery techniques to start really exploring what jewellery should look like and how we could make jewellery that you couldn't otherwise get. And the lobster was one of the first things that once we had the machine, we were able to test things and cut things and move holes on things and make sure it hung properly and really explore jewellery design, really. So that was the start of something quite brilliant. This is some of our acrylic. This is the team making it. So now we've got a studio. We set up a studio in Kent. So we have our studio in London where everything's designed. We set up a studio in Kent because Harriet's from Kent, and actually Kent's a bit like the Isle of Wight as well, a bit of an island. And Medway Council they had a lot of funding, and we basically got a very cheap space, and it was where there was Cllr, which was the Kent Institute of Art and Design, which sadly isn't there anymore. But we had a huge pool of creative people all in one place, and they became the sort of pipeline really of makers for us. So we had a really fabulous sort of production team that were all local, all coming out of art school, all wanting jobs, and to work for a creative business was brilliant. So that really enabled us to sort of make more and more and more and really fulfill the orders that were coming in. It's also worth saying right now, I lived with sort of a web geek who built us our first website in 2001. It wasn't e-commerce, but it was like you could see everything on the internet. And that was, that was an interesting space as well. And we were quite early in the whole e-commerce as well, and social media. So when smartphones came in 2007, suddenly we were able to sort of start to develop our brand. Before that, we were very much a fashion label. And I think when social media came in and suddenly we could talk to people beyond East London, the world, and things started developing quite a lot from that point. And we just made collection after collection after collection of the most bonkers stuff, and they'd all be themed. And we just, we'd make maybe 300 things a year, constantly, busy, busy, busy. This was from 2006. These are all the sketchbooks, just constant sketching. And Harriet and I very much collaborate in terms of, we might say, let's do a nautical theme. And I'll say, all I want to wear is anchors. And then she'll make something with loads of anchors. There's this real conversation between us. And every piece of jewellery has a story behind it. Like, it's all about storytelling. It's all about, if you wear one of our pieces of jewellery, someone will stop you and ask you about your jewellery. And, you will have a story to tell them because it will be about something. And quite often, on a very simple level, if you like nautical things too and you buy it, you can explain that you love nautical things. Whatever it is you're passionate about, it can come through in the conversations and the storytelling. This was, we did a lovely collection about the pearly kings and queens in London. And this is just an example of collaborating around and about. So we had in the shop, we had an exhibition by a photographer who was photographing all the pearly kings and queens. We launched our collection, which was about pearly kings and queens. And at the launch, we had the local pearly kings and queens come along and do some singing. And it was just everything we did. We always wanted that sort of 360 where there's, partnerships, collaborations, events, and you're just immersed in a moment, in a world that is all about something interesting. So some more pieces we've made, always trying to make out of acrylic sort of existing objects in the world and pushing the techniques. This dial actually went round, so almost like little models in a way. These were some goggles that was actually a headband. So making things that look like something that is something completely different. This is a moment when we started manipulating the acrylic a bit more, so really experimenting with what we could do with our material, which up until now was always flat, but we realised that using heat we could bend them, and we started doing much more. I actually brought some examples along out of my own drawer of jewellery, but at the back there's some pieces you can go and have a look at later. And at about 2012, I guess it took us a few years to really work out what we were making and how we were making it and who we were making it for. And I think, the birth of social media, having a shop, it really meant that we could really engage in our customer, really talk to them, really find out what it is they liked about what we did, really find out what they wanted us to do. There was always a really open conversation. We never worked in absolute, in a vacuum. It was always working out what people wanted, really, what people wanted to wear to express who they were. Oh, this is fun. This had a lenticular in the middle, so it actually looked like you're in a spacecraft. This is quite a feat of engineering. The pink and the red acrylic here are interwoven like a knot, and it was based on Elizabethan knot gardens. This is a still life. And this is how we typically start. So Harriet would hold all the sketches in her sketchbook, and it very much be bits of paper, and making maquettes out of paper, and seeing, where that led to and how that could work and how it hangs and the weight and, how much we could load it up with stuff. So you can see over time things got very, very sort of detailed, from those very simple shapes to incredibly detailed. but it's still the simple shapes that still do really, really well. The lobsters, the name necklaces, they're still the things that people love. But we have this whole other sort of dynamic, really, of enables us to, we always say with these collections, we're able to really push our processes. We're really able to use our ideas to find new ways of doing things and creating newness that wouldn't otherwise exist. Just going to flick through these images. This is our lovely Alys, who works for us, but is from the Isle of Wight. We seem to attract Isle of Wight people. We had about 3 at one time. Colour is very important to us, lots and lots of colour. And it really, you know, a lot of what we do is about joy and about positivity. And, you know, at this time in the world when everything is incredibly difficult and incredibly, you know, lacking in joy, and you know, it feels more than ever people are sort of leaning on us to help them find a little bit of something to be happy about. So this is a section around collaboration. So this is actually some work we made with the artist Rob Ryan that we've worked with on and off for like 20 years, I'd say. But I was reflecting the other day on what collaboration means to us, and we did it very early on without even really thinking about it. As I said, we were collaborating together, but actually one of the first collaborations we did was with does anyone remember Electro Clash, like the music scene? There was a band called Chicks on Speed that we really, really loved, and we'd go and see play. And I happened to meet one of them, and they were about to go off on tour around Japan and America, 2 different tours. And I said to her, wouldn't it be great if we made you some merchandise? And they were really excited by that. So we made these little records with their little logo in the middle, earrings, necklace. And I always think of this as they basically went off to Japan and then to America and sprinkled Tatty Devine amongst all the cool girls across the world, sprinkling what we were doing directly into the hands of our customer types. And it wasn't a marketing ploy. It wasn't like us going, aha, this is genius, let's do this. But it's what happened. And it came out of a passion for the music, for the band, wanting to be involved. And the collaboration was about creating something that, you know, back in those days, you'd be lucky if you got a T-shirt at a gig. We wanted there to be something that was more than a T-shirt, something that was more exciting and you know, but could do the same thing. And that really helped us, I think, you know, become something. And then, you know, everyone's aware now of these sort of high street collaborations, but in 2003, New Look came and knocked on our door, and they wanted us to do some design work for them, and that was a collaboration. And we were, you know, it wasn't particularly well paid, but we knew that it would just be seen by so many people. And in terms of, you know, creating a name for ourselves, it was really about getting out there and being seen. And I do think still today, like I still love doing a market stall. I was doing Ingram's a couple of weeks ago because I just love being in front of people, showing them what we're making, telling them about what we're doing. And, you know, moments like that are really, really special. But Rob Ryan, he actually, those keyboard belts that Cindy Sherman was wearing, Rob Ryan was printing them. And if anyone knows his work now, he's very much known for these paper cuts and beautiful writing. But back in 2000, he was just a screen printer. He was an artist, but he was screen printing for a living. And he screen printed T-shirts for us and all sorts. But as time went on, we worked quite a lot with each other. He had an exhibition in our shop where he made 6 one-off paper cuts where there was a piece of jewellery that formed part of the work. So this was my heart, Harriet's heart, and Rob's heart, and all the things that were in it. And then later on, we actually created a fine gold collection using his words, and it was quite an interesting one because the process of casting gold was such that we used acrylic to form the like the wax of what you typically use, which melted away and was left with the gold. So it was an interesting way of taking what we do and working with what he does. And we actually launched this collection in Selfridges. At the time, we had a concession in Selfridges, which was probably the most stressful time of my life, and not one I'd particularly wish to repeat. But we launched it there, and it was quite a thing. We opened a shop in Brewer Street. So we had our shop in Brick Lane, and one night I was in Soho trying to take pictures of neon. We wanted to make some jewellery that looked like neon, and I came across this little shop off a side street, and it said "To Let." So next morning I rang it up, and it was this tiny little kiosk, and we set up shop there. So suddenly we had 2 shops, which felt quite special. And then 5 years later, the rent doubled, tripled, same old story. So we decided to move, and we found a shop in Covent Garden, and we had a parade. So we paraded everything from one shop to the next shop. And I think my favourite moment was the next day on radio. I was listening to radio, like the Today programme or something, and somebody was being interviewed from a theatre production who said, the weirdest thing happened last night. I went out for a fag break, and all these really crazy people were walking past with furniture and stuff. I was like, yeah, that was us. But got all of our friends to come and help, and we had a brass band, and we just made a moment out of it, and it was a memory. It's a really fun memory. Never do anything by halves. This was our concession in Selfridges. So we took a laser cutter into Selfridges, and the security was so difficult that we'd literally just walk in off the street with pocketfuls of like jump rings and chains, because to get it through all the beep, 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 security was just such a nightmare. But we made a lot of name necklaces, and we'd make them on the spot. So you could walk in, just get your name necklace and go. And it was around the same time Selfridges turned 100, and they commissioned us to make a cake, which was amazing. So this is another collaboration. This is an artist called Sylvia Zvarnik, and she is a performance artist. And she had a piece that she did for the Wellcome Trust called Not Undirty. And so we made some toilet flush jewellery, which we actually brought back again and as a special edition, but that was a really fun project. And then this was another form of collaboration. The artist Jeremy Deller was curating an exhibition at Modern Art Oxford about Andy Warhol and William Morris. And he was drawing parallels between them, and he asked us to create a range of jewellery. He felt that Tatty Devine sort of followed similar kind of pathways to the sort of idea of mass production, but as art and a factory space, or rather a kind of an entity that people felt compelled to be part of. And that was a really interesting thing to look at. So that we made these brooches, which were their faces, basically. This is a more recent piece we made of Jeremy Deller. I don't know if anyone saw this campaign. He plastered this all over the billboards, etc. And we made this into a brooch. This was in the run-up to the election. So we've always got quite political when the times felt right. Back in, I think it was 2012, there was the No More Page 3 campaign, which I think Lucy-Anne Holmes was running, essentially trying to get rid of page 3. In fact, there was a naked woman in the paper that, people were picking up and looking at. Complete objectification of women. Anyway, she ran this campaign, so we made little brooches that said No More Page 3, and there were T-shirts, I think. Who did the T-shirts as well? Anyway, they were worn in Parliament, and it happened. Change happened. Page 3 was gone. Not that we caused that, but we were part of that. And, I think this idea of making change, using your imagination and creativity to make good things happen, whether that is getting everyone in a room together to share, or whether that is actually changing the law, these things really matter. This was another sort of less political, but equally important, or maybe more political. This was 2018, and this was 100 years of suffrage for women. And this is Gillian Waring, who was commissioned to make a statue for Parliament Square. And she made it of Millicent Fawcett, who was a suffragist, who essentially campaigned with the petition to get women's suffrage, whilst the suffragettes were more about action, she was more about words. And she said, you know, courage calls to courage everywhere. And we just thought that was so beautiful. And we managed to work with the mayor's office to work with Gillian to create this collection of jewellery. But working out these things obviously don't just happen. And this is very much where I sort of come in with the collaboration, because I love talking to people. I love, talking about ideas, how to make things happen. And actually, we've always said Harriet makes things and I make things happen. But it's all about having the idea and making it happen, finding ways to do that. And just incidentally, I love the story behind this statue, because it's a woman called Caroline Correa Perez who wrote Invisible Women. I don't know if anyone's read that. It's incredible and quite life-changing around, our plight, as it were. But she went running around Parliament Square and just wondered why there was not one statue of a woman. And so she did a petition for there to be a statue, and then it ended in this, which kind of amazing. And we worked a lot with the Fawcett Society, who are a charity working towards equality. We work with lots of fashion designers, so young fashion designers. This is Cleo Pepiat, who we just like making fun stuff. This was never sold, but it was on the catwalk, and people really loved that. There's the page, no more page 3, and Votes for Women. This was made for the Museum of London, that have the biggest suffragette collection. And then we work with sort of much bigger names, I guess, like David Bowie. And we were actually contacted by the David Bowie estate to see if we wanted to take the license. This all gets much more contractual and complicated and financial, and we have to pay minimum guarantees and promise them we'll give them loads of money. But it's kind of quite a brilliant way of working, because we can just sort of cherry pick sort of the brands out there, or the licenses, or the names that we really have really resonate with us. And David Bowie's always been, obviously incredible, and a real inspiration. So this is something that's just kept going and going, and we sell a lot of it. People really, really love it. Last year we were lucky enough to work with Jarvis Cocker on the Pulp played at the Isle of Wight Festival. They had their encore tour, and Jarvis got in touch with us to see if we'd make him some jewellery, and we said yes, because we love them. So much so, actually, that 5 years ago we were celebrating our 20th anniversary, and the Crafts Council gave us a touring exhibition, which was a real privilege and kind of amazing. Took me a year to curate it. I also wrote a book, which is over on the table. But we didn't know what to call the exhibition, and the Crafts Council. This was our first experience actually with sort of public funding, because we'd always just, when we started on the market, we would make £300, and I'd have 100, Harriet would have 100, and Tatty would have 100. And we've always done that. We literally started with nothing, and then just would build it up. And once there was a bit of money, we were like, oh, let's rent a space. Oh, let's buy some new materials. Oh, let's buy a laser cutter. It's sort of from nothing, and always putting it back in the pot. What was my point? I can't remember what my point was. Oh yeah, Misshapes. So we called our exhibition Misshapes. The Crafts Council wanted a jazzy name. I think those were their exact words. And it wanted to be like a name that they could have on posters. And we thought Misshapes because we're girls that make shapes. But also we love pulp. And that song, Misshapes, was sort of when we were at art college, and it was really sort of just felt right. We also make sort of public art pieces. So we got commissioned by Greenwich Council to make this, which is just outside the O2. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but we made it for Christmas, I think 6 years ago, and it's just stayed there because everyone loves it so much. And if you stand in the right place, you can take a selfie, and we called it Rainbow Halo, but it looks like you're wearing it on your head. Another collaboration, this is what I'm wearing. This is Morag Myerscough, and I think she's a really interesting creative to look at, because she makes huge public artworks, and they're all commissioned, through the Arts Council, etc. But she works so collaboratively with the communities, and she will, for example, she just did a piece in Paris for the Olympics, but she worked with the communities on what they cared about and what iconography they wanted to see and how to celebrate them and their environment. She did another piece with an organisation called Left Coast in Blackpool, which again was with the local community, and they pulled out words like smile and dream and words that meant something to them and them in their community and in their environment. So we've worked with her a few times now of taking her huge artworks and then making them really small into jewellery. And yeah, if you don't know her work, check her out, because I think she goes from strength to strength, and she has her own, very much her own aesthetic and her own language, but she's actually making change. She's actually making things happen in the world and making incredible environments for people to experience. And, I think they are incredible. This is a recent collaboration with an illustrator called The Printed Peanut. She does really beautiful sort of screen printing, and we made that into jewellery, and that's done really, really well. This is a different form of collaboration. We do lots of wholesale, so we work with lots of shops we sell to. But in the old days, we would just make stuff, and if people wanted to buy it, they could buy it, fine. These days, we're much more, I guess, strategic, but in the nicest possible way, where, for example, this was made for Kew Gardens, and this was the first time we managed to recycle our scraps, create a new acrylic. And I went to Kew Gardens and said, you've got your orchid exhibition coming up, we've got this beautiful new acrylic, could we make something that's exclusive for you? And, they said yes. And it's just that idea that you can, I think where Tatty Devine's really important is that what we've learned is to get the right product in the right place. Because there's no point, in the old days, I'd just sell it and it'd go off to somewhere in Japan and you would never know what happened to it. But actually being able to know that you're making something that makes sense to someone somewhere for some reason or another, and it makes that connection, and it can lead to change or, shifts in all sorts. I think that's really powerful. We had a huge battle last year. We got kicked out of our shop in Covent Garden. Got 24 hours to leave. We were not treated well after being in our shop for 14 years, and we kicked up quite a fuss. So we had this amazing piece of press. We really felt like there was some sort of cleansing of the high street going on, where anything a little bit different or unconventional was not wanted. And the Times picked up on this over the idea of, we don't want blandness, we want independence, we want creativity, we want points of different, we don't want everything homogenised. We don't want to walk down a high street and it to be exactly the same as the high street in another town. We want these points of difference, and that's where we all come in, because we create that points of difference and we create that energy and that relevance. This is our new shop, which is on Neal Street in Covent Garden, which is just such a joy. It's such a beautiful space. If anyone goes to London, do have a look. It's a very happy space. It's a very inclusive space. It's a safe space. We like to think everyone is welcome. And I think that's really, I guess I can finish up there really. Tatty Devine is about everyone is welcome. There's something for everyone. And that really is our raison d'etre, is to make things that don't exist so that people can really, express themselves in a way they wouldn't otherwise necessarily be able to. And I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rosie.
I'm losing my voice now.
Well, it might be worth resting now, because we did have a Q&A planned, but I think to keep on schedule,
Yeah.
we'll continue. Unless is there like any burning questions to ask now? We could probably take two maybe, and then I can repeat them because then we'll pick it up on the live stream. Has anyone got a burning question now? Can I collaborate? a potential collaborator.
Let's talk.
Excellent. Right, what we're going to... Oh, there is a question right at the very back. Come on down. Okay, so the question is, how do you collaborate with islanders? How do they collaborate with you? How does it work?
I don't think we have
Ooh,
yet.
Yet?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Young people.
with youngster, like people coming out of design schools and art schools, they're generally at a point where their name is just beginning to establish, so that and quite often their PR, they'll have a PR because they get picked up. You know, if you come out of St Martin's or any of those art schools, and you just get sucked into the funnel, and then quite often someone will call us up and say, there's this amazing new designer, she'd love to work with you, and then we have a conversation. But it's very far-ranging. Like quite often I will approach people, quite often people approach us. Like with the printer Peanut, she did this amazing thing last year where she got tins of tomato puree, washed them out, then made them into Christmas decorations. It went on social media and it went viral. It even ended up, I think the Mail wrote a piece about this crazy thing that gone viral. But I saw it and I just thought, oh God, that would make such great jewellery. So I just messaged her and got an instant response. And, you know, sometimes it's just that simple and that momentum. Other times it takes, you know, for example, we did Beetlejuice, which I haven't got on here, but we've made a Beetlejuice collection, but that's probably was 18 months of conversations. So, you know, they can be really varied.
Any other questions? Burning questions.
Are you working on anything now that you haven't told anyone about?
Yes.
What are you working on, Rosie, that you haven't told anyone, that you could tell everyone, the world?
Can you all keep a secret? No, we're very excited because we might be working with Grace and Perry, which is like a dream come true. But you didn't hear that from me.
No one heard that. The world did not hear that. Thank you so much, Rosie.
Pleasure,
Honestly,
thank you.
Rosie will be joining us on the panel discussion later on in the afternoon. Please, everyone, another round of applause for Rosie. Right. So now I welcome to the stage Creative Catalyst Innovation. I think first coming to the stage will be it's both of you. Okay, great, excellent. Lorraine Jones and Dawn Odoi, who will be who talk to organisations about finding their iTunes, and they're going to lead us through a workshop as well, which will take place in the other side of the room, and then we will regroup afterwards. But I'm going to leave them to crowd control, and over to you guys.
Welcome, everyone, and nothing like being the last of two amazing speakers beforehand. So I'm very pleased that we've got a different session for you. Sorry, it's not working. Hang on. There we go. Yep. Oh, doesn't matter. So I'll just give a little bit of background to myself. I've only just moved to the island. I came in March from East Central London, so I'm aware of Tatty Devine. Building 41 has become my new workspace and home, and we absolutely love it. My day job, I have sort of two hats. I work in innovation, and you're going to have to hold Ian back because I come from that corporate world of helping people in finance. So I'm going to give a different lens from the other side, and there are some commonalities and some similarities. And the purpose of our session is to get you thinking. You've had two fantastic about the provocation of creativity is not enough, and then you've got the whole collaboration, and then our breakout session will dive down even deeper. So the point of this is the why, what, and how of innovation, so that you can go and put all your brilliant ideations on the board and follow through. So I work with lots of companies and organisations finding their iTunes, and that story is simply about when Steve Jobs launched the iPod, which I didn't work with him, unfortunately. He didn't just launch the iPod, he launched iTunes, which was a way of he put it on the iPod that it gave people instant accessibility to music 24/7 and notched the competition off the park, and many lost millions because he'd added extra value to that product. And I guess that's essentially what I do through innovation. Dawn works with me in terms of insights, and we'll talk about that in more detail as I go through the how. I didn't always obviously set off in innovation. It's become a new thing. I started life as a designer. So back in the 80s, I trained in Bristol as a graphic designer, and in that day there were no computers. I'm pretty old, so it was my tools of the set was surgical scalpel blade, lighter fuel to clean my artboard, and a packet of Marlboro Lights on the side. And it was pretty relaxed. And through my career, as I've moved through, I've seen that industry transform from dark rooms and typesetters to digital Apple Macs, and the whole printing sector become digitalised. So I've lived and breathed through that and embraced it, actually. I think it's been phenomenal. And yes, jobs have been changed and lost, but new ones have been created, social media, digital marketing and all other. So I know there's always worry. I do an awful lot in the technology sector, an awful lot with AI and other sort of intelligence platforms and things. I worked in analyst markets, and people are always worried about the jobs. Are we going to lose our jobs? And, you know, they will change for sure. But you won't ever lose the skills that you have. So it's how do you use them as tools to adapt and move forward. So I started with the innovation why, and I always use this in terms of the science is settled and it is warned. And what I mean by that is typically in a crisis or when an organisation, an island like ourselves, know that there needs to be change. The data's there. You know, they know change is going to happen. We've got strategies that say it's going to happen. But how do you make that happen? And that's where innovation really plays a part. And there is a saying, it will take disruptive innovators and positive storytelling to solve those problems. Disruptive innovation was a term coined by Clayton Christensen. Look him up. He's the forefather of disruptive innovation from Harvard professor. Positive storytelling is because we have an inherent sort of news and culture of the doom. We're always hearing the doom stories. And to make change, and this saying came out of the climate change, you know, the science, we know there's a problem, but how are we going to change it? And positive storytelling helps with that. The more you tell people how it can be done and show them the light, the more likely you are for that change to happen. Innovation what? So it's the practical implementation of ideas, and I think this is really important. There's lots of ideas, there's lots of ways, you know, brilliant creatives and minds. It's how do you get that into the market? How do you get those innovations experienced? And that does come with, and a different take on creativity is not enough. This is where collaboration comes in, and this is where you need to be clever. You can't just have an idea. There's all sorts of systems and barriers and, you know, people trying to stop you. You have to be a bit of a salmon and keep swimming upstream. But you also need people with you who can help you do that, and that's part of what we do in the innovation side of things. I've got a very dry mouth, I'm so sorry. So Dawn and I talked through, and we've got the boards here. So you know the current situation, which we call as is. You know where you are, and then you have imagine a new world in a bridge. So I've got a bridge, but of a slightly different one to what Ian was talking about in terms of the to be. What's your future shape? Where are you trying to get to? Because, you know, if you don't know where you're heading, any bus will get you there, right? So from the as is, this is a very simplified version of the Design Council's double diamond. Thank you. So to take you through, I've simplified it for today's purpose, but there is a process actually in innovation. It starts with ideation, but you have to kind of, you know what the problem is, you know where you're trying to get to. How do you test and qualify and get other ideas around that? And is it the right idea? And what are the other opportunities around that? So we always start with the discover phase, which is the research and insights. And lots of information, you know, there's lots of, I'm a big fan of parallel worlds. Rosie was talking about that in terms of picking up on not necessarily what was done before, but I actually believe there is some value in that, because can you take what was done before, can you analyse it and break it down and utilise that in a different way? You turn it on its head, take the same skill sets. You know, if we're an island of boat makers, just off the top of my head, can you take those skill sets and reinvent them into, maybe you're building houses with the same commentary. So how do you take skill sets and reinvent them into a new way? And that takes creativity. Insights is massive. Dawn is here. She's a research in Insight. She's my colleague, collaborator, and dear friend. Huge believer in what I do in talking to people, asking the people who you're expecting to buy into what you're doing or buy what you're doing, actually talking to them. Lots and lots of people, lots and lots of organisations are really scared of this part of it. What if they don't agree with what we think? Well, they may not, and then that's something you have to really take on board. So when we've just finished a recent project for a New Zealand company, with lots of my clients are global, international overseas nursing market, which is, you know, so we interviewed people from Africa, Malaysia, India, America, you know, all over the globe, and to understand they're all trying to come to New Zealand. In order to do so, they have to pass an OSCE examination, which costs them an awful lot of money, and there's an awful lot of pressure to pass. There was this perception that their English wasn't particularly good, even though they passed an English qualifying test. When we spoke to them, wonderful human beings that they are, they've been clinically practicing for years, and their English was very good. What the actual problem was, which is why Insights is so good in talking to people, because it's not so much what they say about your product or services, it's the off conversation. And the challenges they had was, yes, they knew how to nurse, and yes, they knew, you know, how to speak English. They'd lost confidence in terms of that cultural translation of that. So when they were then in New Zealand, being assessed, they lost that language, and that became a failure for them. So what actually came out is we ended up designing, creating a product that was around cultural communication. Parallel world, we took the sort of, well, how do you learn a language? And how do you shift that to learn cultural communication of a whole country, and the colloquialisms in the way that they behave? And how do you adapt your cultural so that you can communicate and become a really positive experience of nursing there? Then, so the other process, we move on, and then having all that insights and all that knowledge and all that data and the patterns when trends will come out, we then synthesize of that, and tools. You know, there's plenty of tools. AI is great for helping and supporting this, not replacing though. It doesn't have the same brain. We have to remember that AI is still given parameters and data to work from, so it's not a human, and we still need that human mind, which is so brilliant at working this out. It's really important to do this phase, and I call it the DVFSS phase, because what you have to establish, there's lots of ideas and lots of opportunities for which one should you go for and which one's the right one. And the sort of checklist is almost like a model and a framework of what you've got to ask yourself, and when you work through is it desirable? Are there people there who want to have it and buy it? Is it viable? You know, do I know how much this is going to cost? Do I know what it's going to take? Do I know what I need in resources to make this happen? Is it feasible functionally? Can I make it happen, and over what timeline can that do? What do I need to finance it? Is it sustainable? Is this going to stay in the market and live for a long time, or is it going to be a quick fix? And there are trends that do that come and go. And then is it scalable? And not everybody wants scalability. Now, the organisations that I work for and with, they typically do because of profitability and scale, but not always. But it's still, a model could be scalable if you wanted to, if somebody else wanted to take that model and run with it. And storytelling is really important as well, because when you're creating new ideas and new innovations that people are just, well, they don't understand, they've not seen it before, your positive storytelling is a way of gaining buy-in. Buy-in for the investors, and I know we're in a world where, the funding and the financing, yes, there's definitely an argument for that to change. There isn't an endless pot of funding. But so how do you tell that story? Excuse me. And get people on board. And that's really important for your collaboration. Collaboration is so important in innovation. Innovation in isolation generally fails. But collaboration of diverse teams really helps. So when we're talking to who do you collaborate with, you've got like-minded people, but what about the ones who need to change the systems? What about getting the advocates of the governments and the councils and the finance because we are in that world and they all have a part to play. So the more you can get them on board, and the way you do that is positive storytelling. Show them the vision, sell them the vision, and you'll generally find that they'll come along and start, waving the banner for you and helping you into the roads of the people that can shift and make that change happen. Because it is hard to make change happen. It's always the numbers. There's always a financial. We have got a society that is based on how much profit can we make, and rather than how much change can we make. So you've got to really keep pushing forward with that. So all of that takes place, and then we go into the develop phase. So once you know what you're doing, and yes, you've got you've got the money to go, you can prototype. But again, through the prototyping phase, constantly checking in, constantly getting people to get their feedback. Will it work? Should it adapt? So that you end up with something that is market and customer led, as opposed to just because you want to make money. And then hopefully that all goes well, and you go through delivery. But all of these, as you cycle through, and there's lots and lots of collaboration and continual conversations throughout that. Okay. So I wanted to share a story of a parallel world example, which I'm really into parallel worlds, as I said. And this is a brand and dear to my heart. Is anyone here from Wales? So you may know, this is David Hyatt and his wife Cllr. David Hyatt born from the town of Cardigan in Wales, West Wales. He was a phenomenal, and still is, a phenomenal copywriter working for Saatchi & Saatchi. And I first was introduced to a brand that he and Cllr set up back in the late 90s called Howie's. These are my jeans. So he made these jeans. This is size. I bought these 24 years ago. They cost me £124. They have cardigan bay stitched on the back pocket with a dot that says that's where the factory was. And on the inside, they have life is complicated, sport is simple. And they spoke to me. He spoke to me. His branding was amazing. His communication, his voice was amazing. He was just a small manufacturer, but he then got really big. So he started to sell a lot of jeans and spend a lot of money. So Timberland's invested in him. And then in 2006, they bought him out. And meanwhile going on, Cardigan was actually already, since 1968, had been making 35,000 pairs of jeans a week. And it's a population of 4,000, and 400 of them were employed. In 2002, the manufacturing stopped, and the industry collapsed. The jobs were lost, and it literally ripped the heart out of the community, because without jobs, everybody was there, from generations of people, and their income from this community of making jeans. So Cllr and David had sold out, and then they were seeing their hometown sort of collapsing around them. So they said, okay, let's go do it again. We've got the skill sets. So what David realised, that yes, the manufacturing had moved, but the skills and the knowledge hadn't. So he rallied up all of the old knowledge man, the masters, and he called them grandmasters, actually. That's what they're called in his business today. Set up and started the town making jeans again. And each of those grandmasters had to pass on their knowledge to the younger generation. So there's a complete flow of he's gradually building back up the manufacturing in Cardigan Bay. The brand is now called Hyatt. I'm wearing my Peggies here. And it's a phenomenal story of, and when I was thinking about the island when I came here, sort of like, you've got 33 parishes, and a bit, as Ian was saying, you don't all have to go and make jeans, but is there some lost skill, or is there some combination? You don't always have to do everything at once. It's back to what you were saying, Ian. It's how can you take that parallel world ideation and skill set and connect through, if 33 parishes, took on a sort of Hyatt model, what would that make the island look like? He sells all over the world. He doesn't have shops, but you can go to the factory and go and buy your jeans from them. They're very friendly. They give you a factory tour. So he allows people in very openly, as well as sells all around the world and the globe. So that was my parallel story. I'm being quite quick because I know we've got time and we've really got to get on with the over to you. Sorry. So thank you.
I have to say, I feel I've got real imposter syndrome today because I am not creative. But I've managed to surround myself by creatives for over the last 20 years or so, supporting them in the work they do. I live in a very commercial world. I do market research, so I work with creatives who are working in that industry, in the creative industry, particularly in retail, who are asked by the great and the good to make in-store campaigns, design packaging, and so on. So my role in the process is to conduct research with them amongst consumers, shoppers, and so on, just so they can really maximise that connection with shoppers and get people to buy their products, really. So, and so many bloody logos. You wouldn't believe it. My day is just spent refining everything within a logo, but it's really important to us and obviously to the businesses. But our brands and retail clients and so on, they get really excited when something new, something hasn't been done before, just different ways of doing things. So I feel like I really contribute towards that process. But I also work obviously with Lorraine. We spend a lot of time in tech world, and Lorraine's very strategic and innovative and always looking for new ways to do business in that world as well. So I spend a lot of time talking to key stakeholders. That might be staff, it might be customers of those businesses. And again, it's just about giving Lorraine then the information from the ground, looking ground up, so that she can come up with new strategic, innovative ideas. So that's the kind of world we live in. And one of the ones I was really excited about recently that we worked on was for a social community commerce app. So I spent a lot of intensive time talking to potential users of that app just to try and refine it and work through different ideas and so on. And I would say it was an unintended consequence. There was you were able to strategize and come up with some really exciting, innovative ideas in that process. So it's always about innovation, looking for new and so on, and exciting. That is all exciting, but I am even more excited about the next 30 minutes or so, and we need your help. So you'll have seen there's two boards over here, this side of the room. They're identical on either side, and there's a lot of people here today, so we need to try and organise everyone. Half the room I would like to work on one side of the board, and half the room on this side of the board. So they are identical. But if you remember when you signed up to come today, you were asked a couple of questions, and one of those questions was, what does working in a successful creative industry look like to you? And that was really helpful. Thank you for that. And we've put some of those contributions on the board to the side, but that fueled the design of these boards that we're going to develop and work on today. And there's 5 questions. So somehow, what we need to do, there's roughly 60 people in this room, I believe. We need 10 teams of 6 people each. And there are 5 questions, so 2 people will answer question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to give you a piece of paper. I'm going to go around the room. I think it's, for sake of time, I'm literally going to pick 10 people and give you some paper and post-it notes. Find 5 people to work with you and answer the question on the piece of paper. And that question will correspond with one over here. Find you're getting 5 post-it notes per team, per colour, and yeah, just literally answer that question using your post-it note. But think about what you write on that post-it note. we're talking about really exploring, really using all the creativity in this room. It's challenging all those things that you put on there. So really try and think through. There are 3 questions in total, but the first question is literally to answer the question on your corresponding board, and there'll be about 10 minutes to answer that question. So I'll go around, give out the paper, find the teams, and then work out how to answer that question. I hope it's clearish. Yeah, just ask. So I'm going to go around with the paper now. Hello. So thanks so much. I can only see this side of the board at the minute, and there's loads and loads of stickers, and that's really helpful. It'll be really interesting, just over lunch or later in the afternoon if we all browse around. And definitely, if you think of something else, do add them in. It's really, really helpful and important in terms of just helping us all think about the now and the future and how working together and so on. But if we can, we've only got a few minutes, with maybe about 10 minutes. And if there was any highlights that people would like to share with the wider audience, really, about the questions that they were asked to think about and the response and so on, that'd be really, really nice if everyone could have a little bit of exposure to everyone else's question. So I think there's a microphone that can go around. And if there's anyone who was working on the first question, how can we as creatives be more enterprising? And just if there's anything to singularly or just collectively in terms of your thought process, what was maybe quite interesting or useful to come out of that question? So it doesn't need to be a lot, but just something to give us all a little bit of insight to that question. Great, thank you very much.
We actually had a discussion about defining enterprising, and I think we struggled with that for quite a while until we realised that perhaps it's about kind of expanding these terms outside of the corporate and outside of the way we understand things. And I think that was quite helpful. And I think it really directed where we went with the rest of the kind of session. So.
Okay.
And that is something for language terminology. When we're in our, we use a certain type of language, and I think that's a really valuable point. I talked about the cultural communication program earlier, and so as you're going through, and what is the language? There's a language we have in this room, and there's a language for others outside in terms of. So I think as part of that program, particularly when you're bringing in younger generations, and that maybe there's a whole cultural language program too. Good question.
There was another group on number 1. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon.
Hi, I'd like to expand on the definition of enterprise, because that was my biggest problem. I could not understand the question. I know it sounds weird, but how can we as creatives be more enterprising? To me, that was like, how can we as creatives be more? That wasn't. I couldn't contextualize, and we had quite a long conversation about it because it was something that I just couldn't understand, and I couldn't contribute to the conversation without. I needed more context. For me as a creative, my world is about my experiences, and I take that and I turn that into something. But if I have no context, and that's probably being neurodivergent and all that sort of stuff, but without having that context, I couldn't contribute to the conversation. Where these guys here were really great, and they were writing, and they were really fantastic. I was just giving them rubbish. So
yeah, that's good. And Georgia, when we were doing the event, wasn't it? That was the sort of theme of this event. So that's really interesting to hear that from your perspective. And I guess part of the reason we don't give too much context, because then you start to have bias, and it's really important you remove bias. But equally, very valid point, and I guess some of that would be, well, what did enterprising even stimulate in other than this frustration of, and maybe that's writing it down, I don't even know what enterprising is, you know. Yeah. Be interested to see what the others came up with that as well. Thank you.
So we did discuss quite a lot, and we were talking about how we'd all love to do what we do for the love and just be able to do it, but we have to be able to feed our children and carry on doing what we want to do. So there's we thought of being more enterprising as kind of diversifying what you're doing and using what you already do, but looking at it from different angles and seeing if there's other ways that could bring money into you or spread what you're doing to a different audience or wider. And we're talking about the barriers and the solutions bit as well right now, or are we just doing the first bit?
Yeah.
So the barriers, we said, are sort of time, capacity, and life getting in the way, because we are parents and carers and we have limited time to do all the things that we would like to do. So the solutions we talked about were either inventing a cloning machine, which would be great.
Dolly the sheep.
Yeah. If you could, it would be good. Yeah. But also, just from New Carnival's perspective, I would love to shout about having apprentices, and particularly shared apprentices with through the arts work. This has been amazing for us. We've got the lovely Kai, who's now joined our team, and we had him 2 days a week shared with Vendor Exchange, which we wouldn't have been able to have him full-time. We couldn't afford that, but in that partnership and supported by Arts Work, we got a really valuable asset, which also connected us more with other industries on the island. And yeah, just having an apprentice, if you can, is a really good thing, because that is another pair of hands to help you. And it's a young, cool person who knows more stuff.
And also then going back to what I said in my speech around that scalability. So when you talk about scalability, that's working for you. How do you take that as an island and scale it? What does that look like? So yeah.
I'm not sure if that was 2 group ones here, or is this, you were? Okay, all right, lovely. Anything else on the first question about the enterprising plan? So maybe if anyone would like to share what they found for the second question, which was about using the assets and gifts that the island provides to diversify opportunities. Was there anything interesting to come out of that anyone would like to share? Oh, lovely, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Graham Pountney from Theatre Reviver. We are 6 down here. We had great trouble. What does diversified revenues mean? So we're absolutely bang on with you gentlemen over there. No idea what this is on about. So we tried to work out what each of us did and what each of us could find another way of doing with resources that we might pick up from the seashore or discard from what we've used. We thought that was a starting point.
It's a very good starting point. So what came out of that? Was there any sort of particular things that came in terms of what that looked like, and if you had to put names to those? Or
although the one I liked best was using garlic husks for artwork.
Love it, great.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much, Gwen. Was there another group too that would like to add to that? Yes, okay, lovely.
So yeah, we also struggled with quite understanding what it was that we were meant to be doing. But we had a really good, rich conversation, actually, which probably went further away from the brief than garlic husks. It was, where we got to was that what we need to do is to make the island more accessible, have a unique selling point, work with town and parish councils to identify what it is that's special about us within the biosphere. But then we made some deep political decisions, like making sure that the ferry services have a better agreement and footing, run all night, run very cheaply, attract young families to come and live on the Isle of Wight, etc. We went down quite a deep rabbit hole. I'm not sure we answered the question.
And you don't...
I think the other group two probably got it right.
There is no right and wrong, and that's what's so lovely about this. And when I was talking, I said the reason we ask the insights, the gold comes from the off conversation often, rather than answering the actual questions. So brilliant, thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. And then we've got the third question, which is how we can work together with other sectors just to really help and support the economic strength of the island. Is there anyone from Group 3 who would like to share some of the findings and the discussions they had?
Paul from Sandown Carnival. We had an interesting group and some interesting ideas. I don't want to say ditto to some of the other comments about us wrestling with the terminology and ideas. We found ourselves, well, I found myself thinking about what Rosie had told us earlier and how she moved from student life to economic strength, which is an interesting journey. And we wondered how much that was to do with her own efforts or to do with luck, being in the right place at the right time, or just making sure that you positioned yourself so that Vogue might find you, or indeed a funder might find you or a sponsor might find you. So we wrestled with that and we didn't really have an obvious answer. Others in the group might want to contribute, but Holly came up quite early with the idea of a dragon's den for the island, which was applied to the creative sector. So I leave that as an idea.
Very good idea, thank you.
Perfect.
And just on that as well, in terms of that that language of diverse, the economic strength, and does chance find you? Is it luck or is it something else? And that's what innovation is. You've got to be prepared to step out onto the bridge, even though it's in the mist and you can't see the other side. You work through, is it right or wrong? In this ideation stage, nothing's wrong. As you work through that process, which is why I shared the process, you start to get the answers that you want and you need to get to the solution. So thank you for sharing that. It's really insightful.
And then we move on to number 4, which I would love to be able to read off the board. I still can't quite see it. So, yeah, how can we utilise technology to our advantage? Yeah, great. Thank you.
Is this on? Yeah. I was saying thank you to everybody for their input today. My name's Kevin. I'm just moving out of a career in corporate fundraising. So I met a ton of interesting people that have loads of money we don't know what to do with. So I want to put that to use on the Isle of Wight. So I'm local, I live in Cowes, I'm a Londoner. I've been living here 4 years, but I've lived all over the world, luckily. And one of the things that I've noticed, and I will answer the question, but one of the things I've noticed is that the Isle of Wight, collectively, heard that word a lot today, it tends to underrate itself, I think, for no good reason, other than maybe it's always been done that way, the Victorian thing, the hangover. So I think we're on the edge of something here, it's really exciting. And on the technology side, the common theme for our group was the amazing speed of the internet on the island, better than London, better than many other places in the world. So, we're not making the most of that, clearly, because we need to be a bit more globally minded in the Isle of Wight. Technologically, we also drew a conclusion that there's potentially room for more collaboration. We've got these amazing tools, and, is it a lack of time? Everyone's time poor these days, aren't they? So the lack of time combines with maybe a bit of fear about technology. So training is required. And we also saw that there's an idea for, similar to the Dragon's Den actually, but a centralised Isle of Wight app. I'm working with a guy who uses Wix as a platform. I don't know anything about Wix until yesterday, but now I know that apparently Wix is the gateway to Google bots. So I want to explore that, and it's all about getting the word out, isn't it? So that's kind of our overview. Has anybody got anything to add on that, or is that about it? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
So reliable partners is the other thing, So partner with people that we know and trust, as was evidenced earlier by other conversations. So,
thank you. Yes, great. And anyone else from number 4? Anything to add? No? Oh, great. Thank you.
Oh, right. Don't promise to be too good at this. Kate, probably best described as a writer. There were 3 of us, and we think that technology in itself, there are many, many brilliant platforms out there. There's lots and lots of stuff. But you do fall down a rabbit hole when you try to do all of it, if you see what I mean. We felt that very often the actual kind of money involved in subscriptions to things or trying to run your own website, things like that, they can be barriers. But technology in itself, social media, it allows us to reach out. It allows us to beat the isolation that sometimes as an artist or a writer you do hive away, beavering away yourself, and you're in your room or on your laptop or whatever a lot of the time doing things and you don't get out to people. We felt that knowing that there are things like this, like creative networks out here, is fantastic for overcoming barriers, collaboration, trying to improve our own networks in terms of reaching out to other people, to funders, those sorts of things. We felt that there is perhaps a use for AI in things like trying to write bids, but obviously it's not very human, so you then need to go back through it and humanise that so that people can see the artist behind the bid. And the other thing we felt is that very much as individuals, sometimes it is literally being brave enough to come and step over the parapet and come and make sure you're out there, try and connect with other people, find that there are people out there, and again, build partnerships and networks.
Brilliant. Thank you for summing that up. And I think going back to just an idea, an aha moment in terms of, we have co-sharing workspaces, collaboration work. What about co-sharing software? Just a thought. Well, yeah, it is today, but what if you make change happen? Just because it's so doesn't mean it should be, right? Just a thought.
Challenging, that's great. Thank you very much. And then we're on to the last one. What opportunities are being missed to help the island thrive as a creative centre? This is a nice roundup, really. Anyone from Group 5? Oh, we definitely did.
Last one. Then you can go. Anybody with Group 5? You don't have 5. Do you have 5 round the? Do we have 5 round the other side? Empty on the board. Okay. Well, whilst you're eating that, please do keep putting keep putting the post-it notes up, and because the more that board is filled, at the end of the day, Dawn and I will summarise everything and put that into some sort of meaningful report so that you'll have that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. It's been insightful.
Thank you.
If I switched it on, maybe that would help. Thank you both so much. It was, I think a challenge for everyone to take part in a workshop, in breakouts like this. But I hope that it's at least sort of got everyone talking to people, people that they haven't met before. So I really appreciate you all diving into this. I really do. And thank you both so much for facilitating. And like Dawn and Lorraine said, they will be able to summarise all of your wonderful thoughts. And please continue to place your thoughts onto the boards throughout the day. We are going to break for lunch. Yeah! So we are running over a little bit. I think we were supposed to come back at 1:15, probably be about 1:30 now. So the food is located on the table over there, and if you have any dietary requirements, you do have an individual bag, and it will say on the bag what that requirement is. So find your bag. Oh, the dietary bags are over by the kitchen area, so go over there. Thank you all so much. Please come back at 1:30, where we will have Councillor Julie Jones-Evans speaking, and also a brand new initiative also being announced and at Building 41, and then our panel discussion as well. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome back. Hope you all had a lovely lunch, and I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone that's taken part in the morning session. It's been quite an invigorating session, I know you'll all agree, and hopefully you're feeling refueled and refreshed. And our peppermint tea that I'd like to introduce you to as a digestive for our afternoon slots is Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, to talk a little bit about the economic impact, the wider economic impact of the creative industries on the Isle of Wight. And I will leave it at that. Over to you, Julie.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak this afternoon. And apologies, it's going to be a little bit dry, some of it. I hope it's not too, but we are the postprandial digestive, as you said. So if you want to have a little nap, that's fine by me as well. So I'm Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, and I'm a member of the Isle of Wight Council, and I'm the Cabinet Member for Regeneration, Economic Development, Culture, Tourism and Leisure. So it's a really lovely area of work to be in. And I have firmly got my my council hat on today, and I'm also very proudly the Vice Chair of the Local Government Association Board for Culture, Tourism and Sport, and also a member of the Arts Council of England South West Council. So I'm really privileged to be able to hold those two positions and to be able to bring our island voice into a national arena. So that's me. Other people who know me also know I'm a Tatty Devine collector. So this is one of my favourite pieces. This is the moustache, and Rosie was telling me about the story. So I have this moustache. I have to go to lots of meetings, and sometimes there's lots of men in these meetings, and some of them are all lovely, but sometimes if they're not listening to me, I just go like this, and hopefully they think, she's one of us, you know. And if they don't, at least, you know, amuses myself. So yeah, I like the storytelling through jewellery. It's quite subtle, but those who know. So yeah, good afternoon. What a great morning it's been. It's been really it's inspiring, I think, and thought-provoking, and I like the discussion about language and the language we use with each other, because I think that sometimes it is a divide with business and with culture. So it's going to talk a little bit about creative industries on national scale and here on the Isle of Wight. Now, first I need to apologise. I can't cover all of the areas, so if I'm not name checking your sector, you know, your craft or your particular organisation, that's not because I don't want to, it's because it's just, you know, time constraint. We could be here all day saying how great we are. And I think there was, earlier someone said about the Isle of Wight not actually believing in itself enough and not shouting out, not having enough confidence. And I think that's really true. What I found, I think we need to be, you know, through collaboration, through these events, through your networking, we can, you know, have that collective voice and be loud and proud about the island. So the creative industries are a cornerstone of the UK's economy and cultural identity, encompassing a wide range of sectors, including music, theatre, film, visual arts and digital media. The creative industries contribute over £115 billion annually to the UK economy. I mean, that is a staggering amount. And this sector has been growing at almost twice the rate of the overall economy, which showcases its resilience and capacity for innovation. It employs over 2 million people. So the creative sector is one of the largest job providers in the UK, offering a diverse range of roles from artists and technicians to designers and marketeers. The government's UK Creative Industries Sector Vision was launched last year, and it aims to grow the sector by additional £50 billion each year and create an extra million extra jobs by 2030, which a £50 million investment in creative industry clusters to foster innovation, a new cultural education plan to enhance skills and education in the sector, initiative to boost exports and strengthen international partnerships in creative fields. This needs to be caveated slightly because we've had a change of government, and most of the Labour Party ministerial team were all shadows. There was a change though, because Thangam Debonair, who was the shadow culture secretary, she was not elected. So we've got Lisa Nandy now. So I think Debonair was Thangam was very focused on what she wanted to see. So now there's been almost a hiatus. So we're waiting to hear now with bated breath on how they're going to be looking at culture. So talk about local authorities now, just drilling down a little bit. They're actually a crucial role in supporting the creative sector, despite arts and culture being non-statutory functions. Now this again is a bit of dry, it might sound a bit dry, what the hell is that? Basically, local authorities have to provide certain services like adult social care, children's services, waste, stuff like that. So when we are in straitened times, money for non-statutory functions, which sadly creative culture comes under that, those areas get squeezed and of course we've got more and more pressure. So we've got less money, more pressure, squeezed from the side. So it's not people don't recognise the importance of it. It's just legally there's constraints around us. But local authorities are actually the largest custodians of culture. You know, they have obviously properties, museums, galleries, etc. They spend about £2.1 billion each year on cultural services. So that does recognise the arts and culture drive. So they recognise arts and culture drive community engagement, economic development and social cohesion as well, which was seen particularly after the recent the demonstrations, the violence in the summer that we had. They found areas that had strong cultural offer. They have responded better to the damage that was done. So especially with the social cohesion element of that. But what we have found is with these pressures I talked about, we've actually lost £2.3 billion of spend over the last 10 years because of the pressures that we're on. So I mentioned I'm a member of the LGA Culture, Tourism, Sport Board, and that's a really important board that we focus on looking at driving regeneration and economic growth, building partnerships between local government, businesses and cultural organisations, and also talking directly to government, maximising the impact of cultural initiatives on tourism and community wellbeing. So that's a board where we can see all of that whole sector in the round and seeing how it connects with each other and we can just be that lobbying voice to government. Lots of research goes on as well. And of course, one of our favourites got Arts Council England, which we work closely with at the LGA. We all know the Arts Council, but they provide financial support through grants to individuals, organisations and projects, ensuring accessibility to the arts for all communities, including, here on the island. Very proudly, we're a priority place. And this is where policy comes into it. Because if we didn't have the political buy-in to have a cultural strategy, the Arts Council... Well, basically, it made it easy for the Arts Council to come here and say, yes, we're going to invest more, because it wasn't just about the need, it was also about the opportunity. So having a political vision that was focused on where work is meant that we were aligned and could get things done. Which I think we've been pretty successful, haven't we, in the last 3 years? I think it's like £7.7 million has come to the island. So, that's fantastic. So well done, you all. We've also got museums and cultural tourism on the island. It's really important. We've got our museums. We've got several notable museums. Carisbrooke Castle, Classic Boat, Museum of Island History, Pooh Museum, of course, is an absolute favourite of mine as well. But these institutions not only preserve our rich history, tell our story, but they also attract tourists, which also contributes to local economy. The tourism sector is really important on the island, and it's about 36% of all our economic activity actually comes from tourism. So it's really, really important to us. We know that, but the link with culture is equally as important to support that. So a significant portion of this income is fueled by the creative scene, like from the Isle of Wight Festival. I've got Cows Week, local galleries, artisan markets, and obviously things like Ventnor Fringe. Our cultural offerings draw visitors, which enhances the economic impact of tourism on the island. So we've had a bit of exciting development. So last week we had a planning committee, again, really boring but important. We had the film studio just across the river there. It got its planning permission, which is just so exciting. I mean, this is really real game changer. It's a project I've been working on for the last couple of years. So last week I would huge sigh of relief, and also, you know, popping the imaginary champagne cork as well. So it will bring economic opportunities. It will create jobs across various sectors, not just film, but also hospitality, construction and local services. It stands to attract significant investment and bolster our local economy. The studio provides a platform for our island's creative community to collaborate with national and international production. This includes opportunities for filmmakers, actors, set designers, technicians, and even humble, you know, chippies and sparks and plasterers. They're all absolutely critical to this new opportunity that we have. So I'm working also on some skills, career paths at the minute. We're putting together an application to the British Film Institution this week, actually, supported by Creative Ireland, the headline applicant there, but we're all working together as a team to put this in, hopefully to bring about £150,000 to the island to do some skills work, which we really need to capitalise that. And then, of course, for the boost the tourism as well, you've got the rise of set jetting. This is where people will go all anywhere, just have a photograph taken next to a bit in their set from their favourite film or TV show. So again, with the Isle of Wight's beauty, I think it's just going to be more and more attractive. It'll be across the world. So I think I'm running over, Georgia. I don't know. I'll give you 5 more minutes. So we've got the Isle of Wight cultural strategy is really important. That was launched here only like 11 months ago. So policy is boring, but it really is essential because it enables it to be a thing in the council or in the government that people follow. Then I know it sounds really dry, but it's so important we articulate what are needed, we articulate our importance, and that we have politicians and council officers that will then, you know, push forward what we need to happen, because it's all part of a collective here. You know, we all play our part in growing our economy. So quick check out some favourites of mine. Vent Fringe, obviously, you know, it's an amazing festival, bringing all sorts of different artists together, musicians, performers, and so many visitors from the island coming over and seeing the island's beauty and all our local culture too. And carnivals, I love our carnival scene. You know, it really just yay! It just brings so much joy. And I was happy to parade around in my giant hat this year at some of them, and we've got a couple of cups. So I was pretty pleased about that as well. And so venues like Strings in Newport, I mean, love Strings as well. They bring global acts to our island. So, you know, thank you for all the work you do there. So we're here at Building 41. Again, it's another important part of why why the policy of bringing creatives more into the economic world and the business world. That's why it's really important. We've got Creative Island based here. That's why it's really important. Now we've got Shade Makers across the road and the Sheds doing their thing over there, because this is a business centre, but actually we've just demonstrated how important creative sector is to business and to the economy. So that's why it's great to host this today and to have creators working from here. And Ottilie in a minute is going to tell you about her new initiative. So I just wanted to say there's lots of, you can do business courses here with Go for Growth. There's also Solent Partners. I've got a new skills boot camp starting 11th of November, which is creative management. So check that out online. There might be some leaflets around here as well today. So I know I probably am, running over, okay, on time. So let's finish off by saying I just want to thank you all for coming here today. Thank you for inviting me. But especially, thank you for you all telling our island story every day, speaking to the world and to our community. So keep on expressing, keep on pushing the boundaries. Without this, we can't grow as individuals or as a collective. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Julie. You've really positioned that well. And because we are a bit squeezed for time, I'm going to quickly invite Ottilie over to the hot seat and just talk a little bit about a new initiative here at Building 41.
Thank you. Am I sitting in this one? Amazing. don't want to slide off. Hi guys, I'm Ottilie. I'm the admin and marketing coordinator for this amazing building. Thank you for coming here today and hosting this. So I've got a new initiative coming out soon, partnership with Creative Island and Isle of Wight Creative Network, which we're really lucky to be able to work with them here. It's essentially a creative hub. It's called B41 Creative. It's free entry every Thursday morning. You can come to Building 41, which doesn't usually look like this. It's a little bit more tables and stuff. And you can work with other creatives, collaborate. It doesn't matter what you do. You can be sewing, you can be painting, you can be writing a script, editing, content planning. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, come along for free, have the coffee, free parking, and just enjoy a morning of collaboration and innovation, which is what it's all about at Building 41. So yeah, I've got some leaflets, which I will pass around. You can scan the QR code, which will gain you access to book a ticket. And yeah, it launches on the 24th of October. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Fabulous.
I have to sit down. Oh, I hate all this sitting. Right, so now we're going to continue with the schedule for the day, which is our panel discussion on collaboration, innovation and enterprise. And I'm going to welcome our amazing chair for today. That's Alys Scott Hawkins, a visual artist based in Southampton, and also one of our creative advisors for the Creative Network, working with lots of different artists and creatives, find their unique potential and work with them on their portfolios and funding applications and visions. And on the panel will be Rosie Wolfenden and also Jo Plumb, a theatre maker, and also Jan Frith, a visual artist here on the island. And yeah, no pressure, guys. Over to you for some really insightful discussions. We will be opening up the floor as a natural segue, which Alys will continue to chair, and then you're all free to go. Would you guys like to take the stage?
Hello. Thank you for that lovely introduction, Georgia. Thank you for my lovely panel members for joining me up here. So the plan for this next stage is to discuss some of the themes and ideas that have come up today. And then, as Georgia says, we'll open out to questions. It seemed to me from the discussions we had during the workshop earlier on today, there's so much wisdom, there's so much sort of energy and enthusiasm in the room. So there's lots here, but then we'll also make it a bigger conversation. So I'm going to start with you, Rosie, if I may. I know that not everybody in the room now was here this morning, and perhaps we may have some people who've joined us on the live stream who weren't here for your keynote. So if you could start off by giving a very brief overview of who you are and what you do, and then I will ask you a question.
Fine. So I'm Rosie Wolfenden, brought up on the island, live on the island now, but I've been running Tatty Devine, which is a jewellery business, for the last 25 years in London. And we make lots of very fun and exciting acrylic jewellery that we collaborate a lot with lots of artists and organisations, and like to be sort of very culturally present.
Thank you. So starting off with this theme of collaboration, you mentioned in your presentation earlier how you work with your business partner, Harriet Vine, and you said, Harriet makes things and I make things happen. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that collaboration in that respect, because I think lots of creative people could want that person who can make things happen. So it'd be lovely to hear a bit more about that and how it works between you.
Yeah, I think we're, incredibly fortunate that we found each other. And we found each other because we went to college together, and I knew she had a spare room, and the ceiling fell in my place. So I was like, Harriet, can I move in with you? But that was the start of it all, really. And I suppose with unintentionally, we just had this amazing marriage of skill sets where Harriet really can turn her hand to make anything. Her father's a carpenter, her mother's a seamstress, couture seamstress. So just attention to detail, but also with a wild imagination, which is what we mostly had in common, I suppose. Me, on the other hand, I grew up in a hotel, I guess in quite an enterprising space. My grandmother was a local creative in Ventnor, Bonchurch. She made, she sold, she, as an older woman, she survived purely off selling paintings and her books and things. So I guess enterprise was in my blood without even realising it. But I was really just able to get very excited about what we were making, and I wanted to sell it. And that's, not just literally receiving money for it, but like selling the idea, selling the notion, selling the lifestyle, selling the dream, that world that we kind of created.
Wonderful, thank you. And just to continue from that, if you have an answer to this, how do creative people find people who can make things happen for them? Do you have any suggestions for that? How can these kinds of relationships evolve, or how do we have those conversations that become the kind of partnership that you and Harriet have?
Well, obviously we met through a creative space, which was an art school, but places like this are creative spaces. Just going, I don't know, to the theatre or going to gigs or going to a club, putting yourself in a place where you're surrounded by like-minded people. In that space, there's going to be different skill sets, and it's about just really, I think, being very open and sharing of your ideas. When people say, "Oh, I've got this idea, but I can't tell anyone because someone might steal it," it's all about opening up and being available to be found, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, interesting. Thank you. And perhaps we can come back to some of those themes a bit later on in terms of collaboration and ideas and ownership and that kind of thing. Jo, can we come to you next? Please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I'm Joe Plumb. I'm the artistic director of Horsebox Theatre Company based on the island. We make cool shit with people on the Isle of Wight. And I also work for Shade Makers as the programming manager for Department, which is a new arts and cultural space in the heart of Ryde, out the old Elizabeth Pax building, and have worked with Shade Makers on a number of projects like the Queen's Jubilee and Ad Astra this summer. That's right.
So thinking about collaboration, can you tell us about how that works for you, both within the organisation that you work for and in the work that you do with Horsebox?
Yeah, so totally. Theatre is a massive collaboration at all times, whether that's a collaboration between a performer and its audience, whether it's a collaboration between the whole creative team to be able to put something on, and so it's kind of everything I'm always used to doing. You cannot rely on just yourself to be able to create that art form. It's impossible, and so it runs through everything, but they're at really different levels. So there's some kind of like the administrative collaboration between people where you're booking the right venue to find things. There's the collaboration between a performer and another performer where you're on stage, and so much of it is down to trust as a really like important factor, because when you're on stage in whatever capacity, you're giving a lot of yourself you put yourself in a very vulnerable situation, and you need to be able to trust the other people who you're collaborating with and know that you can make it work. It also needs leadership, and it needs a vision. So with our work with Shade Makers, we have the amazing Paul McLaren, who's sat over there, and he is our artistic director, in the same way that for Horsebox, I'm the artistic director of Horsebox. It needs a creative vision and a leadership, and then the whole team to collaborate, to trust each other to be able to deliver what they need to do, but also to trust in that vision and to achieve that. The second that somebody doesn't quite get that vision, or it loses any of the trust, is when collaboration becomes very, very tricky. And normally when you find you're arguing with somebody, or there's a disagreement, or it's difficult, the problem is that the vision, that people are not sure what you're actually trying to create. And that's the bit you need to actually go back to and have that discussion with. I found it very recently. We're doing Sunset Boulevard on the 7th to the 10th of November, which tickets are available now. And we're working on a creative team with that. It's a large-scale musical. It's got like a massive cast and a huge cast of orchestra, whatever they're called, musicians. And a big creative team. And the thing is, with theatre and creative people are all mental, really, and which is great. And you've got huge personalities, and you've got amazing creative minds. And it took a very long time until, I mean, we've been working on this project for over 6 months, really, since the first kind of idea. And the show's next month, and only really in the last couple of weeks have we actually kind of cemented that and got it right. And it has been at times a horrendous process where I really wanted to not do it anymore. And then you win it back, and the ultimate thing was the vision, and we needed to make sure we were all on board with what was happening, because we were disagreeing because not everyone was able. I wasn't able to communicate it, not everyone else was able to buy into it. And so that was at the heart of how we collaborate. And it's now in a much better place. Some of them are nice to me.
Thank you, Joe. Last but not least, Jan, will you tell us a bit about yourself and what you do?
First of all, I've got to do something with this. Is this on? Oh, yes, it is.
It is.
So I'm the shy visual artist, not the performing extrovert. I make tech as my practice, or rather I use tech, it's subject, and I use a variety of media. So I use analogue and digital media across a whole spectrum. So it might be sound ideas, it might be film, it might be objects of technology like typewriters or sewing machines. And I've noticed it in my biog, I think I'm best known on the island because I've pushed it with quite a lot of publicity. My interactive sewing memories project, which was an old Singer sewing machine that had a Raspberry Pi embedded in it, and it contains about 200 memories of people that have sewn. And I also identify with the hamster on the wheel that Ian said earlier, because I'm sort of at the start of my artistic career where I'm trying to get funding. And I have actually had 2 funds for the Sewing Memories project. So that's probably about enough of an intro.
Thank you. And in terms of collaboration, I'm thinking about your Sewing Memories project. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what it's like as an individual creative person to partner with a museum, with a venue, with an organisation. What does that kind of collaboration involve, or what's your experience of that kind of working been?
Well, I had a commission or 2 before with the D-Day story, which was the first place where I got the Arts Council grant to run that. So it was a huge learning curve for me, really, and it was really learning what the museum's objectives were. So, for instance, they are a wartime museum with an ageing demographic of people who are interested in the war. You know, there's a certain generation. So they wanted to attract new people and females to the exhibition. So knowing those kind of objectives, having worked with the museum already and sort of got under the skin of what their collection was and what they were interested in, I could go to them with my interactive sewing machine and take something straight out of their collection, which was make, do and mend, and then rework it as sew, style and upcycle for a really young audience. And that actually did attract a lot of young people and women to go to the D-Day story and actually find out it was a terrific place as well, because it's really welcoming. It's a state-of-the-art museum. So it got people through the door, and that was their objective, and that was, in writing the proposal, it was keeping that in mind so that they wanted to essentially back my project.
Great, thank you. In conversations that I have with creative people, they often have brilliant ideas, but need to find a partner organisation or a kind of champion or a collaborator in order to get that project going. I wonder if any of you might have any suggestions or tips or advice, you know, particularly thinking about the individual approaching somebody else who you need. Do any of you have something to share? How do you do it? How do you do it well? Joe?
There's an argument. There and it's kind of cheesy to say, but places like this are really great because you get that opportunity to kind of meet other creatives, and you can have that kind of chat without it kind of necessarily feeling like you have to agree to anything, because really, like, collaboration is fantastic, and you could have the most amazing artist and you'd really appreciate their work, but you clash as people, and so you need to know if you get on with those people. That's such an important point, because whatever project you're going to do, you're going to have to spend a long time with them, and there is no point working with somebody that it's just always going to be a battle. However great that piece of art may be at the end of it, you always look back and you go, okay, actually, was this process worth it? So meeting people, chatting to them, getting creative, and then bouncing ideas off each other. And if they bounce up, then they're the kind of people you want to work with. If you say an idea and the second they say, oh, I don't know whether you can do that, and you're having a chat with them, then never talk to them again and send them away, because it's ridiculous. Like, everything should be about going, yeah, and then you could do this, and you could do this, and you could do this. You've got to think big, and if they think big,
really
then work.
Exciting. It should be about really egging each other on and getting to a point where you really want to make something happen. And it might be that everyone's interested in exploring an idea, but from different angles. Whether you're a visual artist or a sound artist, or someone with an event space, you can do an event there, or there's, it's about people bringing different things to the conversation and to a project, or, working in isolation can be quite difficult, but when everybody's got the same goal, which is to make something exciting happen, or to make something that otherwise wouldn't exist. That's what we always, with our collaborations, we love the idea that we make something that wouldn't otherwise exist. And I think that's got to be the true sort of reason for doing something, for collaborating.
Thank you, Jan. I wonder if you've got anything to add to that about what you've learned from collaborations. What could you share with others?
Yeah, I mean, I agree totally with the chemistry fit. When I first got in touch with the D-Day story, it was actually by pure chance. I'd set up something in a shop window in the High Street in Ryde, and it just so happened that the engagement manager for the D-Day story happened to come in and liked what I was doing with the sewing machine. And he said, I've got this project, I've got a load of lottery funding to showcase the landing craft tank, and maybe you'd like to apply for it. And it was actually him that I bought into rather than necessarily the project. It was quite sort of dry to begin with, but it was actually, I learnt so much from him, and he was so enthusiastic, and he really pushed me. Mm-hmm. And then the second project that I applied for, it was a competitive pitch with other people. I got it, and he really pushed me, and it was fantastic. Actually, we did an exhibition on board the landing craft tank, and there were so many restrictions of what we couldn't do, and it wasn't in the brief, but he obviously trusted me, I trusted him, and we got a lot more out of the project together. And actually he became, well, not him because the role passed on, but the museum became a sort of client of mine. I think I've had about 5 projects out of them. So it was just really getting that fit and getting on with people, really.
Great, thank you all. I guess my last question on collaboration is thinking about, what goes wrong? What's the stuff that doesn't work out? I'm interested in the kind of nitty-gritty. And Rosie, you were talking this morning in your presentation about, collaborating with other creative people, with brands, and that was making me wonder, how do those conversations go? Is there a tussle about kind of ownership and intellectual property? Does it only come to fruition when it's kind of free flowing? What's the tricky stuff?
Oh, that's a good question. IP is really important, and I think, we are a commercial entity, and we have commercial agreements in place on, how to share the financial outcome of it. But from a sort of purely from an IP perspective, in terms of the design, we've always just gone 50-50 in terms of, quite a lot of the time it's somebody's IP that we then work into jewellery. Sometimes it's jewellery that works into somebody else, our IP that works into somebody else's product, as it were. but it's conversations. And I think it's like Joe was saying about all buying into the vision. You know, we have a vision, and I think when we collaborate with people and it really works is when the vision is very aligned, and occasionally it doesn't work and the product's a bit rubbish, it doesn't really sell, you never hear about it. But that's quite rare. It's quite rare because generally we'll meet people, we'll get excited, we get, you know, really stimulated by ideas and what we can do and how we can do it, and that's the magic, and that's what, you know, perpetuates it forward into, if it isn't there, like Joe says, if that chemistry's not there, it's a bit like, oh yeah, well, maybe we'll give you a call. You know, and then it just doesn't lead to anywhere. But it's, you know, probably like romance. It's just, you know, there's got to be that instant click.
And there's been quite a lot of conversations today about risk and about risk taking. So I guess that's inevitable, that you have to try things to discover whether or not they're going to work.
Yeah, you've just always got to take risks. I mean, you know, when we started, we were young, we had nothing to lose. We literally had nothing to lose. So we took every risk under the sun. Obviously, as you get older and you have a family and maybe you have a house and you care for people, and there's a lot more at stake. And I do appreciate that. But more often than not, the risks are worth taking.
Joe, I wonder if you've got anything to share about what you've learned from things that have gone wrong, or what your relationship is to risk in relation to collaboration.
Yeah, I think bravery is really important, and encouraging each other to be brave and just to go along on the ride. My therapist, said sometimes you're a tractor and sometimes you're a trailer, and I think it's kind of important to work out which one you are in that relationship, in that situation. Sometimes you're there to kind of really take the lead on a project, and you need to, and sometimes you're there to kind of ride with other people's ideas and filter in what you need to do, and sometimes you're both kind of in a weird double steering wheel tractor, but which is fine. I think a really, really good example was we did window in the shop windows of Elizabeth Pax. We did residencies with artists, and we decided to put some performers in there. We worked with Rob, who's here as well today, and it's about going, here's the space. Let's work on something. How much boundary do you want? So, like, I can tell you've got a week to make something. I can give you a title if you want me to give you a title, and then I'll come and play as much as you like. But I want you to be able to create and have this time to be able to do that. And so you create, it's like you're facilitating a collaboration and allowing that person to come up with their ideas. It's going to an artist and going, look, I'd like you to design the set for Hamlet. I really like your style. This is the vibe of the show there. Sometimes you may actually have to go into a lot more detail, and some people really like to know exactly what you want from it, and other people like to have that freedom. And I think the times where it's gone wrong for me is not really having that discussion beforehand of how much do you need from me, how much freedom do you want, where, you know, how can we play around with this, because it is it's fostering that relationship, and it's understanding about compromise, it's understanding about making sure everyone gets what they want. But I think just being able to communicate all the way through this process, are you okay with this, how are you feeling about it, great, still on board, still excited, still pushing you further to get the best out of it.
Brilliant, thank you. Jan, I'm thinking about in your projects where some of your I don't know if you describe it like this, but there are participants that are involved in experiencing your work and contributing to it. And does that feel like a collaboration? And are there sort of risks or challenges in that way of working?
Yes, there are. You never know who you're going to get, especially if you have a drop-in session. I think I honed a little bit of skill in that area from doing volunteering work at Aspire. So I'd come from a business background, and I was used to talking in a certain language and working with a certain demographic, and then actually working with people from a very different background. That sort of gave me a much broader awareness. So I worked with youth offenders, I worked with people who had life-limiting illnesses, a whole sort of range of people on that level. So it really equipped me to sort of think on my feet when people came in and threw a curveball at workshops that I did. And I did many workshops. In fact, I had training at the New Carnival Company. sort of halfway through, sort of to equip me a bit better with those things that might get thrown up. But generally, I think I've always taken risk in most things that I've done. I always say that I've never really had a permanent job because I've been freelance for over 20 years commercially. So that kind of puts you on the sharp end of never having job protection and vicarious liability protection and all of that. So I'm just very, very conscientious, checking small details and doing risk assessments and making sure that my house doesn't get taken.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm gonna take risk into our next sort of chapter of discussion, thinking about innovation. I guess innovation, bringing new things into the world, developing new ideas, that's something that is an intrinsic part of any kind of creative practice. Jo, I wonder, do you have anything you'd like to share about what that's been like and what that means in your work?
Yeah, so in working with shade makers over the course of this last year, we've been thinking innovatively about how we present the large-scale carnival costumes. And so, obviously, for many years, carnival and street procession has been the main kind of delivery of those of that creative art. And so what we've looked at this year is working collaboratively with lots of other organisations to think about how this can be presented in different forms. So we did an exhibition at the Cllr. People could see these costumes up close. It was a hugely successful exhibition and was a fantastic opportunity to kind of put all them in one room and for people to kind of understand more about the creative process. We then looked at taking the show to Cllr Theatre, and we did a piece that, didn't fit in the room at all, and was massive lorry outside, costumes being taken all the way around the outside. People are watching this little box here with something looking amazing and thousands of other things going on around them. And it was an incredible experience, and it's because we looked innovatively at that art form and went, actually, okay, what happens if we put it in an exhibition setting? What happens if we put it on stage? Where are our ambitions with this to go further? How can we collaborate with other people? How can we tell a narrative story using these costume pieces? And to enable us to do that is all to do with collaboration and working with other people. So I came in for the theatre side. We worked with Lily, who choreographs the dance pieces. We worked with the team at Cllr Theatre to be logistically able to deliver that, and then having an understanding that and a respect for the original art form that you're innovating. So working with Paul and ensuring that that art form is delivered in the best way possible, and we are respecting its original meaning and where it's from. So we're not innovating for the sake of innovating. We're innovating to be able to provide a bigger audience and a different experience of that art form and that content.
Brilliant, thank you. Rosie, again, referring to your presentation this morning, I'm thinking about how you showed us the original laser cutter and, how your production sort of evolved from one chapter to the next. And I guess also thinking about, fashion is always after the new. Everything's got to be... Well, you talked about wanting to create things that didn't already exist in the world. So yeah, I pass the question on to you. What does innovation mean, or what's it enabled you to do?
I mean, innovation operates on every level, I think, in what we do. It is about the product and the techniques and making something new. It's also how we make it and how we've built our team and our studio to enable that. We've had to create our own rules, our own systems, our own Bible of how-tos, and we train all of our makers specifically in Tatty Devine jewellery making. But then the innovation goes further, because it's not just about what we're making, it's about how we're selling it and showing it. And I'm really interested in, I've always headed up the business side, but I always think that business is incredibly creative, and actually enterprise and innovation is, it's thinking slightly outside the box at all times. So, it's really honing
what it is you do and where it exists in the world and who it's for and what messages you're trying to carry, what's its purpose. And, you know, we quite quickly realised that a really natural habitat for what we made was in the shops that are aligned to museums and galleries, because the people going there were curious and creative and interested. So, you know, we really carved out this innovation of being a creative that could supply the right product to the right place in the right, you know, with integrity and with purpose. And, you know, I really see like our work with Tate and the V&A and all these incredible places, but I've made that happen. I've had those conversations. I've innovated and said, I think we've got a solution for your potential problem, which is that what you're selling is really bland, and we can make that better, you know. And it's about innovation. Innovation is about finding solutions to problems that people often think there is no way, that life is just like that, but it doesn't have to be like that.
Great, thank you. That's a great answer. Jan, you use technology in different and unusual ways. What does innovation mean in terms of your practice and how you work?
It's a scary moment, but it's actually saying what you said, I think, that it's a way to solve a problem. So I have an idea that's usually fairly mad. I've had it in the bath. I get up and I think, how can I make it? I don't know how to do it. I'm maybe not a software developer. So it's then kind of looking through it. Well, I don't have a Rolodex. I was just about to sort of, who can I call? But for me, innovation and collaboration are part of the same thing. Yeah. They're inseparable, and probably enterprise in that as well. But I don't think I could make what I do without calling on the help of people. It probably started off from having a very good family background of engineers, people that are very practically minded, to actually just cultivating a whole network of technical people who often are so close to doing software programming that actually it's a fresh, you know, it's nice to have somebody who's a bit mad who says, oh, and what about doing this with it? So, yeah, I think innovation is in most things that I do. But I think there's a difference between innovation being defined as an aha sort of mind-blowing moment to just practically getting on and doing stuff, maybe a bit different to what you've done before. You know, innovation can be a scary word, but I don't think it is. I think it is. Yeah. It's practical problem solving.
Yeah, and those aha moments, if they do come, those moments of revelation don't emerge from nowhere, but from a lot of graft, a lot of research, a lot of experimentation, things that didn't work out and so on. But
well, I think you don't make work in a vacuum. So you're starting off with something that you know, but actually to feed something into it to make it different, it's almost like an odd pairing. So you have to go somewhere else to get that.
Okay, and with my awareness of the passing time, I'm going to, again, swoosh us on to the question of enterprise and what that means. In the group I was in the workshop earlier, we discussed a lot. Firstly, what does enterprise mean? What actually are we talking about? So, whoever would like to tell me or tell us what it means to you, or how it's existed within your practice and what you do. Rosie, looks like you're...
This morning I was like, what does enterprise mean? Googling it up. But I suppose it is a mindset. And I was thinking about this. I come from a long line on both sides of self-employed people. So no one in my family's ever had a real job. So it never occurred to me that I should get a proper job. And it was actually Harriet and I the last thing we wanted was a proper job. So I suppose it's about enterprise is about finding a way to exist in the world using what you have, which is your skill set, your ideas, your imagination, and making that find a way to exist. You know, everyone has different needs, but you know, be enterprising to make yourself a a shed to live in if you didn't have, you know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't have to be about becoming a millionaire. It's about using your resources in a really clever way to get what you need. So I love enterprising, and I'd never sort of thought, people often refer to us as entrepreneurs, and I'm like, we're not, because we're not constantly trying to make money. We're just finding a way to make things that we feel should be in the world, and finding a way to pay the rent with it. And, you know, I think that's the nuts and bolts of it, isn't it?
Brilliant, thank you. Jan, I wonder what your relationship is with enterprise. And
I think it's taking risk to deliver benefit. So I'm taking risk, and the benefit to me is that I'm going to enjoy doing something unusual that I find rewarding. But ultimately, I'll be paid because I'm delivering benefit to somebody else. So for the museum, as I said, they were getting benefit because they were encouraging young people to upcycle clothes, or rather I was encouraging people to upcycle clothes, engage with the museum, and they were able to showcase their own identity and creativity in doing that. So it's about delivering benefit, I think.
Really interesting, thank you. Jo, I wonder whether enterprise sort of looks and feels the same at Shade Makers and at Horsebox Theatre. Is it different in different kinds of operation or different scales of activity?
Yeah, I think from the theatre perspective, there's and with Shade Makers, there's a shift from, we're about to move into a venue, and you start to think about the running of that venue, and you start to think about how you can find kind of money-making elements that are going to be able to support the art and to be able to balance that. And so we've just employed a cafe and a bar manager, and they're to really deliver the kind of commercial arm that then funds the programming and the arts. And it's to create a sustainable model. And the understanding always is that it goes back into the programming and what's happening within that building, because the art is the important bit. It would be lovely to have some cake, but really, like, the art is why the building exists. And so that's the really, really important bit. And so it's finding commercial elements that can then support and make sure that artists can do what they want to do. In terms of theatre, the relationship between, like, customer and the art is probably at its closest. Like, you don't, unless Rosie walks around and watches people as they're putting her necklace on and just going for it. It's the same thing. Like, you say a line, and the person who's paid to see you is literally there looking at you and reacting to how you've done that. So the relationship between a customer and what they paid for is at its closest. And so you're really acutely aware that they've paid 15 quid to sit here for 2 hours to watch me run around the stage being silly, and you know that's what they've paid for, and you know when you're not giving them what they want. And so the relationship between us and those people, the mindset is so there. The second you create something that is just for you, brilliant, put it on your wall, don't ever try and sell it. Like, if you've got to think about the person who is going to buy it. If you want to sell it, brilliant, you must think about the other people, and do that because you love the process of it and enjoy it and make the work that's something you're really proud of. But the second you ignore that somebody else is going to buy this, then don't sell it. Like, that's not what the purpose is. The second you create theatre without thinking about the audience, you haven't made theatre, you've made something weird for your bedroom. Like, that's it. And you need, and I think there is we shy away from an understanding of this because the money bit gets in the way, but actually get rid of the money bit for a second and just go, it's for somebody else. And enterprise is just, how can we give other people what they want in an exciting and innovative way and get excited about that? And that's the bit of it. And then, you've got to find a number to stick on it and say, well, I think this has cost this much money. And so I think you need to pay this much money because this is how much it's worth. But that bit is the money bit is the afterthought of enterprise, I think. The people, what you want to provide them is the really key.
Brilliant. Thank you all so much for answering all of my questions. But I'm certain there will be lots of other questions, thoughts and ideas out there. So now I will open it up I know there is a roving microphone that's coming on a long cable. Please keep waving until it arrives with you.
Hello. Hi. My name's Rob. I'm a theatre maker, and I'd like to ask all of you, how important is failure as part of an enterprising process?
Very important. We did a scratch night, which is the first time we've done these. So we're trialling a whole load of new plays for Horse Sports Theatre. And so we've been presenting like 10, 20-minute snippets of these in an evening. We've got another one coming up on the 12th of October at the Key Arts, if you're about. And it's a whole evening of failure. And it's brilliant because that's the point. And everybody's there to work out what's wrong so that you can make it better. And it's such an exciting part. And a lot of kind of, when we talk about department as a space, is going, this is a space where you're okay, it's okay to fail. And actually, I was thinking about this before, that the Isle of Wight is, as its selling point, like, one of our creative team who I had an argument with about Sunset Boulevard said, you just got to think about this is the Isle of Wight. And I was like, exactly. So it doesn't matter. We're not spending millions of pounds on this project. We can go mental, we can go big, we can be ambitious because the fall isn't that high. So actually, this is the Isle of Wight. So we could be a work in progress island. We could fail as much as we like because we've got a boundary around us. Nobody is going to get, it's very unlikely that the national press are ever going to complain about and everyone's never going to see your work again. It's okay to fail here. Do it all the time. Be brave. There's no point not being brave. I don't own a house.
Rosie? Yeah, I mean, I guess there's always failure somewhere. I remember we started making belts, and I remember we got a big order from a shop in Japan, and we sent them off, and then I got this phone call saying, we really like them, but how do you wear them? And they sent a picture, and we hadn't put any holes in. And we were like, and that was a really good lesson learned. So that introduced the concept of quality control to what we were doing. And, I think you learn from your failures, don't you? And hopefully never repeat them. And they're always, they're part of the building blocks of doing what you do really well. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. Jan, anything to add?
Not really. I don't dwell on the failures.
Me neither. No, I mean, they're just gone.
Well, I mean, I think in creative practice, we don't necessarily see them as failures because we see that they're steps on the journey to whatever the right solution is. So, yeah. And yes, another question.
Is that going right? Element of nepotism here because I'm going to talk about department. What Joe hasn't mentioned is this is a CDF project. Excuse me, Joe. And it means that we've been able to raise money from the government to rescue what was effectively a derelict building in the centre of Ryde. Initially, it was to save shade makers from going under from the threat of rampant landlords charging for sheds which were freezing. We have, in fact, inherited exactly that over the road right now. We'll put some heating in this Christmas. But what I'd like to say is the idea originally was that shade makers would use the entire building for a range of different activities. And it became very clear that that wasn't our function anymore. Because we're supported by the Arts Council and have been for a number of years, it meant that we had to think differently about how we lived in a community of artists and decided that what we'd do is we'd actually just go to the attic and leave the rest of the space available. When we brought in Turner Works, the team of architects from London, we said that it's going to work on 3 levels, obviously 3 floors, but the first level was like part of the street. It was an extension to go right through the building and was like an extension of the street space. Middle floor was more studio space and activities, conference rooms, meeting spaces. The rear of the building was due to be my studio, and Joe has managed to move in there and create a theatre space. But what's happened is it's more important for us to be part of like a homogenous artist community, and it's not just about that building itself, it's about the potential for the entire island to use that principle, to use that idea. It's become our philosophy that it's not about ownership, it's about giving, gifting and presenting. Okay, it's just a statement, thank you. You can actually say something, but you don't need to.
Can I just ask a question? I think you said it's a CDF project, and I wondered if you could tell us what that means, please. What it stands for.
It's the Cultural Development Fund, indeed, run by the DCMS.
Which is the Department for Culture, Media and Sport.
And for some reason, sport.
Brilliant, thank you. Just wherever there's an acronym, I always think it's worth opening out.
Exactly what Paul said. It's like, and one of the important things is there is a collaboration that we haven't really mentioned in particularly public funding arts, which is the political collaboration that like we need to be aware of, whether that's with funders, whether that's with other people, and it's about how you build that relationship as well. And like we're very like insanely lucky to have Julie Evans on the council to like fight our creative corner, and with it, literally without Julie in the last like 4 years, we would all be doomed. So it's a really like important collaboration to have with those politicians, and to keep nagging them and to keep going on about it and keep pushing forward, because those big projects need investment from local government, need investment from national government, and it's really important to kind of have those people who fight your corner at those levels, because that's what's needed, and they need to think innovatively, and we think innovatively, so we need to be badgering them and working collaboratively with them.
Brilliant, thank you. Badgering. Who's got the next question?
Hello, I speak for a member from the YouTube Live, so if they have anything else to say, this is your time to get keyboard ready. So this comes from Richard, and it goes back to the collaboration part that you were all discussing. And what about if you get ghosted by a potential collaborator? Have you had to continue a project solo or source new collaborators? How do you navigate that situation?
Goodness, I don't know. I mean, going back to the chemistry thing, I guess if someone's ghosting you, the chemistry probably isn't great. And it's probably a good idea to move on. And if the collaboration was an idea that you're very passionate about, maybe it's worth finding someone else to make that happen with. But perhaps it's about finding a new idea and a new collaborator.
I agree.
Agree.
Well, that just brought to my mind what we were just saying about risk-taking and failure, you know, and some things don't work out, and you learn from that maybe about the conversations to have or what to put in place next time round to try and avoid those difficult experiences.
Something we've always found is that the best things are the most natural, and when something's a bit difficult, it's just never going to work very well. And sometimes you have to see things through, but it's when it's very natural and you're both excited and you're both on it and you're both invigorated, that's when the best things happen.
Yeah, and I guess that's about how you get to work together as well, how you get to communicate. You know, that for collaboration, you really need to be able to sort of feel the excitement in the room, and maybe collaborations that are international, you don't get to be face to face, you're doing it via, digital means. Maybe I wonder whether that can make it harder to sort of feel that chemistry or not, or trust your instinct or not.
Yeah, I think it's collaboration is a relationship, so it's the same as any other relationship. So sometimes it can work long distance, sometimes if it's toxic and difficult, then you need to pull it to an end. And you do have to kind of be honest with that relationship and know that it's going to involve compromise, and know that you're going to have to bring, some of that. And there's going to be times where you have disagreements. There's going to be times when it's going to go really well. If it's getting exciting and it's staying positive and it's staying healthy and it's happy, then long live that relationship. And if it's not, then it's okay to step down. I'm single.
Thank you. Following on from that, there must be more questions. There must be more thoughts that you want to share with us from your own experiences. Yes, all the way over here, please. It's fine. We just have to all sit in that moment while the microphone gets to you.
Click it on. No, I'm on. Hello, I'm Trudy. Some of you know me already. So I'm a visual fine artist here on the island. So I was going to just mention like collaboration. So a lot of my work is about collaborating. I collaborate with the landscape, I collaborate with people. And my passion is really about saying how amazing this island is, because it's incredible. I work a lot with geology, paleontology and science. So in terms of collaboration, a lot of things that have been difficult in my world is I'm an artist and I'm interested in science. And scientists go, why are you here? Like, why are you coming and knocking out on our door? But actually, I want to talk a little bit. There's a bit of a shift in that area. I've recently been at a conference that was phenomenal. It was all about, we got a load of geologists and creatives all together in a conference and shared our passion about geology, art, creativity, music. And it's just really exciting to see this shift, because it's something that I've been like not battling, but like championing for so many years. So I've been looking at this project for like probably about 7-8 years. I've been working with geology and science and going, guys, we can really work together. And now I'm starting to see the shift, and it's just such an exciting place to be. And it's really great because some of it was really difficult. Like, I've been working with museums. If any of you know my work, you know that. And it's really hard because you're like always almost knocking on closed doors going, come on, like we can do stuff. I can see this potential as a creative. But they don't always align because they come from such a different background than myself a lot of the time. But it's hard. And sometimes I am like knocking at these closed doors going, come on, we can do stuff. And I have persevered and I have done stuff, so I'm really like pleased, and it's great to see those shifts. So even though collaborations can be difficult, sometimes for me it has been worth sticking it out and talking to those people. And even if they're not super willing, like I've gone off and got funding and got, okay, now can you tell me a bit more, because I've got a bit of funding for my time. So yeah, it is worth it, and there's stuff out there if you're really passionate about something. You make things happen.
Brilliant, thanks Trudy. I wonder whether that opens up another bit of discussion about kind of communication between different sectors or realms, because that was something that came up in discussion in the group I was in during the workshop this morning. You know, we recognise the terminology in our own field or our own sector, and we don't necessarily we're a bit wary of language or ways of doing things. It's too easy to go, oh, you know, that's what you do. I'm with my people over here. I wonder if there's anything more that you can say, or if you have a question to ask about communication and how to make those conversations happen between people who are coming from different worlds.
Yeah, so like in my practice, I've really planted myself as much as I can, learning as much as I can, specifically like in the geology. Like the Isle of Wight Creative Network logo is actually inspired by the geological map of the island. So the different colours are from that. Just thought I'd nod that because it's relevant. There you go.
Logo.
Logo. But in terms of those conversations, I think sometimes there's a shift in language. I do shift my language depending on who I'm around. My partner's actually a geologist, so I've got a lot of those conversations, although we try not to do too much work at home. But I do shift my language and just kind of immerse myself in their world, and that's what I did. But now, when I was up at the Geological Society, it was just so exciting because the language was shifting between arts language and scientific language. Sorry, thanks. And I think that there was that real openness of discussion that those languages can be similar and that we can have a really interesting rapport between the two. And it doesn't necessarily mean like we're sitting in this box and you're sitting in that box and you can't possibly understand the two. Actually, it was really like cross-discipline, which I think there's a lot more push now on recognising cross-discipline sort of practices, because actually we're all people, we're all interested in things, so stop pigeonholing everybody.
Great, thank you. I wonder if anybody on the panel's got anything to add to that or share from their own experience. Joe?
Yeah, I think it's always exciting to merge worlds together, and I think a lot of the biggest hurdle is fear and encouraging people to be brave and to trust that it will work and it's okay to fail and it's okay to do all these things. And communicating that really early on is important. And I think there are so many examples of that fascinating collaboration, but also things that people put, of completely different worlds, and that's when you get really exciting moments. But people put things, and we do it as much as anybody else, where we try and overcomplicate or use jargon or language, because then it means that we can talk to each other, and other people find it difficult. So, like technical theatre people are like really bad at doing it. They make a lighting desk look as complicated as possible, but in reality, it's really quite easy. But they do it because they don't want anyone else to touch it. And we do exactly the same thing. We use our language in a way that we can communicate with each other, but somebody else has to kind of learn, and it can kind of keep someone in their place. It's all that, it's a mindset thing. And so in that kind of delivery, it's about how you kind of break down those barriers and actually see, oh, no, we're actually just human beings who are all kind of just talking in the same way. You don't need kind of a PhD in understanding the words I'm saying here. We can have this communication. And so breaking down those language barriers and breaking down how we talk to each other and go, actually, it's just a load of jargon and a pointless kind of thing to explore. We spend too much time trying to work out what enterprise means, when actually the question that we want to ask, just ask the actual question, like rather than defining and spending hours doing that. Actually, let's get into what are we really trying to talk about here, and just use normal language to enable that to happen. And I think it's exactly the same. You want to work with geologists, and let's break down that conversation. How can we have this in the simplest possible way? And simple isn't wrong or stupid. It's where it's the healthy ground of reality, and we need to stop kind of flouncing and making things more complicated.
I was just going to say that I think the meeting of science and art is so pulsating with innovation right now, and is almost the future, and it must be a really exciting place to be. But it's the sort of marriages of disciplines and different silos, I guess, when they actually start coming together, magic can happen. I believe that.
Any more questions or thoughts? Yes, Sam.
Oh, aha. I now speak for Jade from Guernsey Arts, who has said, what advice do you have for young people wanting to stay in Ireland and build their creative practice or business, just because it includes limitations, connections of resources and things? So what do you think is the best way about that?
Joe looks ready.
I love this one. And particularly from as Guernsey, I'm glad that it's not just us. But one of the biggest problems, apart from the climate crisis facing the Isle of Wight, is the population imbalance, and it's a huge problem that we can see at the moment, like in the potential closure of those primary schools, is because, and this is where an innovative solution is needed. So a council that goes, I'm going to cut primary schools because there's not enough places, is not thinking innovatively. So that's not thinking, I wonder how, like if you wanted to set up a family and you want to come to the island, and then all you see is a load of primary schools going, oh, you're a teacher and you want to work somewhere else, you're not going to want to work here because your job isn't safe. Invest in the money in young people and invest in supporting making this place an amazing place to live. Our dear Mayor of Ryde at the back was talking to young people earlier this week, and they said their biggest problem is they just want to get off. And it's like, and they do. They really want to get off. And at the moment, there's no late night ferries. So if they're going off for a long time, and then they're coming back. A late night ferry means you can pop up to London and you can come back the next day. Like, we need to think innovatively about the way that we are, because this place is a really exciting place. It can be a work in progress island. It can be an amazing space for young people to want to thrive and live here. And the barriers that we constantly are putting up and not thinking innovatively about how we actually go, okay, let's solve this problem. Let's get young people excited about being here, not excited about leaving. All of us have a role to do in going, like, hey, there's no young people here. Well done. You two we found one. Wandering of going into schools and going, oh, this is actually my job, and I'm here and I do this for a job, you can do this for your job. Like, I was insanely lucky to go to Medina High School when there was a load of funding for big arts project in the late 2000s, and run by my now boss, Sharon George, which was a fantastic project. And it involved loads and loads of artists. All I ever saw at school was artists. And in my class is Jack Whitewood, who goes and sets up Ventnor Fringe. I've got people who work in TV, people who work in theatre, all because all we ever heard at school was creativity, creativity, creativity. It's the only thing we can do. So we've all got to go into schools. We've all got to turn there and go, look, kids, no, stay on the Isle of Wight, do it here, make it here. Go and have a lovely time at university or train, but here is the place to grow up, to raise kids and to have an amazing time. Otherwise, we're a floating retirement home in 10 years' time. And we're literally doomed. And so that's all it is. That's where it's at.
So well said. I can't say anything after that. What he said. Yeah, he's right. It's, there's that old adage that you have to see it to be it, and if you can't see it, how on earth will you ever be it? So I totally agree. It's all of our jobs to encourage young people to find a way and to be the creative person they want to be, and also to fight for it. There's a lot to fight for.
I see another question. Hang on, just wait for it's coming your way. Thank you.
I just wanted to echo those sentiments, but one of my old bosses, who became a really good mentor, had this expression about the grass being greener elsewhere. So he said that, the grass is greener where you water it. So that's really, thank you for reinforcing that.
Great, thank you. I know there are more. It's just that you haven't quite felt that you were ready to stick your hand up. So, brilliant. Thank you.
Hello? Oh, it's not really a question. Going on from what Joe said about going into the schools, I also, and it kind of works with the conversation we had in group about systems, because I met Trudy on a project that we did that was a kind of collaborative project. So Cowes Enterprise Schools collaborating with the Key Arts, and I was a bridging artist. Like Trudy had quite a different experience. And we had 6 months to go in school and work with a range of students. So I worked with I think years 7 to 9 for 6 months to it was meant to be a collaboration with the Key Arts, getting the kids from the school to the Key Arts, getting the kids out of school, and then in the school, it was meant to be going into the art department, but also going into, the science department, the geography. It was it was set up like that, and the systems in place didn't allow it. So in those 6 months, we did loads of work. It was great. The children never left the school. The children never left the classroom. The children didn't even we ended up with a kind of real lowest common denominator that maybe 6 of them would get down and curate a cafe wall exhibition. Even that couldn't happen. They wanted to walk down to the marina. That didn't happen. And it was because of the kind of relentlessness of the system of the school, the logistics of signing the kids out of school, even the logistics of getting the school to work with itself. So I agree that we need to do everything we can, and I was really passionate about that project. But I think as well as going into schools, we need to make places that are out of school, which obviously is where places like, all our cultural institutions like Department will be, like Key Arts, like Ventnor Exchange, and find and create other spaces where these kind of Goliath systems or structures that are quite fossilised aren't restricting that ambition to get to the kids. And so at the end of it, we had a lot of work and it was exciting and they did learn, but it was actually quite different to what you said, Joe. And maybe that reflects on me and myself as well. But the kids were meant to be encouraged to do art, and I think I worked with 330 kids for 6 months, and and they were choosing their options, and literally one of them wanted to choose art because everyone else wanted to do something that would earn them money, and they saw them as being separate. And so it's just a part of that conversation. I think that if we're on the island and we want to make that a good place for kids to grow up and have these experiences. I love what you said, you know, about how your class went on to do that thing. Obviously something was thriving there, but we need access, basically, access. So it's not always going to be in schools. We've got to create accessible spaces outside of school and then get the kids there and kind of keep pushing. So it was just to add on.
Yeah, so I'm 21. I've just finished my university. I've come down back to live on the island. I grew up here. I'm sure a lot of you also grew up here and have that experience of wanting to be like, oh, I just need to leave. I just need to get away, because there is very limited opportunities. But places like Ventnor Exchange, the department yet to be, Key Arts, they are starting to create opportunities for young people. And I think everyone in this room who has like the power to create these spaces which are free and accessible for people who can't necessarily afford to do a 12 grand residency or something. Just do it. Just keep doing it because it's great and it makes me want to stay a bit more than like I've had some opportunities recently which have given me the kind of inspiration to be like, oh yeah, I actually could stay here and make work here. I don't have to leave. So just keep doing that. I just thought I'd say that. Woo!
You know, I think you're totally right, Liz, about the school situation, and I think it's not, you know, young people don't just stay in schools, and that's an important factor. Reaching young people is much bigger than just that area, and there is, you know, Cllr and everything is doing with the CEP to kind of break that boundary with schools, but there is so much more that we can do to support and engage young people, and all of us in our practice need to be aware that the biggest problem facing the island is population imbalance. So if you're not doing anything to support that, then why not? And everything you can do, you know, your art is a political act, and we're all doing it, and we're making life on the island better, and that might be your way of interacting and doing it, because it's going to, but there is something every single one of us can be doing to help solve that problem and to make life better for everybody living and growing up on the island. And in terms of what we can do to provide spaces where, you know, and showing the reality of this is what you can do if you want to start up, organisations like the Creative Network, organisations like all the kind of big arts organisations, to any of you, you know, if you're making a piece of art, you're looking to collaborate with someone in their early 20s, because there's a desperate need, yeah? There really is a desperate need. And so that's why not do that. It's a really important time and a really important thing we've got to do.
Georgia. Can I have your mic? Just because it's closer. Is that okay? So just to add on to that, and because something that we are doing as a new initiative and a collaboration between Isle of Wight Creative Network, Brave Island, which is essentially the sort of younger version of the creative network for young people on the island wanting to find pathways into the creative industries, and Platform One as well, which is the boutique music college and sustainable fashion college on the Isle of Wight. We work at an event at Strings specifically for 16 to 30-year-olds, and invite a panel of speakers working in the creative industries, much like this kind of setting, really, but it's in a bar with DJs and, you know, some fun stuff and beer. So we do that, and the next one is on the 7th of November, and it's just a small step because of exactly the same thing as what you said. If they don't see it, they don't know they can become it. And so being able to shine a spotlight on those creative practices here and the pathways from people that have grown up here or moved down here and still developing their business here is so vitally important. And those young people don't have anywhere to go. Stuff, you know, conversations do happen, you know, off chance in pubs and stuff, but actually finding that like little space where you can really sort of forge those conversations is so important. So it's called Future Works. So if you do know anyone that would like to come along, it's a completely free event, and yeah, that's just one small element. And yeah, a few people in the room have also been on our panel. And if you'd like to be on the panel for future events, just let me know.
I think we've got a few more minutes, and I can feel there are more comments, thoughts, questions, and ideas out there. Brilliant.
All right. I'm trying to think of how to say this. I've noticed, and this is an all-age different reason, a lot of people, no matter how much they advertise or promote on the island, still seem unaware of offence. They seem to have their own mind blinkered. For instance, Fever's shutting down. I've met 2 people moaning that there's no nightclubs in Newport, even though Strings has been there for like several years now. And it's just like, I think they've advertised well enough. But, and literally someone was asking me what town Fentanyl Fringe was in. But yeah, I'm most every art base and I'm entertainment based on the island, bar the Isle of Wight Festival. There always seems to be someone who isn't aware of something going on. Now we've discussed more promotion and that lot, but how would you guys advise advertising something, well, convincing people to come to events?
I totally agree with that, and it baffles me that there's so many things that no one knows about, and you happen chance upon things. I was saying earlier about Ingram's Yard Market in Ventnor, which is an initiative from the Ventnor Exchange, and I've met so many people that just haven't heard of it. And I just feel like every single person on the Isle of Wight should know about this. Come and get fresh bread that's made on the island, come and get some coffee from Sheer Pink. It's really great. But I think it comes back to the tech thing. I think there's so much that could be done. Majority of people on social media, they could be told about all these things, but it's almost like there needs to be a centralised communication, sharing of cultural information. I don't know what the answer is, but I've been wondering myself.
I did a little exercise this morning and looked at how many seats there would be if you filled all of the theatre spaces on the island, and it's 2,300, which is exactly the same number of seats as there is at the London Palladium across the whole of the Isle of Wight, and so that's like 1.4% or something of the population who can go into the theatre at any one time. And so the idea that we're competing for audiences is rubbish. There's lots of people who, there's, and it's like 46.5% of people say they go to a cultural event every year. So the people want to go and watch stuff, and they want to go and see stuff, and there isn't a problem of competing audiences. We've got to go out and find those people and let them know and be better at communicating with that. There's a problem with programming, like we program very sporadically, so there'll be a show on that night, and then there won't be anything on that venue for about 3 weeks, and then randomly there'll be a comedian, and then there'll be another big gap, and then you don't know whether there's going to be a show on that night. And so we need to program more regularly, and we need to provide so people know stuff is on all the time, and so there's that kind of systematic and kind of admin thing, and we also need to think about, like, do an exercise where you look at the empty seats in the theatre. Who do you want in that gig? So actually, if you're putting on a gig, you're not just sending it out on Facebook and going, come along to my thing. You're going, actually, what type of people do I want? In the same way that you would go and sell your products to somebody else, you're going to that market and you're going to find it. It's not just putting some posters up and hoping someone gets it. Who is your audience? And you've got to have that mind to go out and go, I want this row to be full of this type of people, so I've got to talk to this type of people. Where do they go? Who do they listen to? Who else do they talk to? Be there. Be exactly in the same way when you talked about selling necklaces at that gig. Like they're your target audience, so go to do that. So then, and they'll also go, I know where I'm going to put my poster for my next tour, in Tatty Devine's shop. It's that thought process. For Sunset Boulevard on the 7th and 10th of November.
There are. Oh, sorry. I was going to say there are. I was thinking there are resources. There's On the Wight, and you can go on there. You can see what's happening, but you've got to go through that thought process of wondering what is happening. It's almost like we need to get it everything everyone's doing in front of as many people as possible, so people can't miss it, you know, that they don't have to look for it, that they're just shown it. Yeah, don't know how.
There's a comment here at the front, but I'm aware there was also a question at the back. I like this collaborative decision making. We'll have a vote, that one.
Thank you. I just wanted to pick up again about the council and supporting young people staying here. You know, we're doing the work on the film studio, which is a massive, massive opportunity. Another big project I'm working on is bringing student accommodation to Newport. So not only to bring young people here so they can study at Platform 1 at the Isle of Wight College, where you can do degrees and masters, but having them in the town centre means they have a high quality place to live, but also they can regenerate, you know, help regenerate, bring that vibrancy. Just picked up on the schools thing. So, you know, I find it, you know, difficult sometimes, Joe, when you challenge me back on the schools thing, but, you know, we're working within a legal framework as well. So it's not we haven't thought, oh, I know what we're going to do today, we're going to close some schools. No, it's all about, you know, our falling birth rates, which is happening all around the country and in Europe. They're closing primary schools in London as well. So we feel it more keenly here. Of course we do, because these are our schools. It's really, really important. But we're not looking at it in isolation. You know, schools have come to us and asked us to do this, but we're looking at repurposing any buildings as well. So for teacher training, again, bring more high quality teachers here. We're lucky to have Joe as a high quality teacher, and there's others in the room as well. So please don't go away thinking, oh, we're just doing this thing because, you know, we want to, we don't want to, but we're trying to be more creative in the way that we represent that back to our community. So just wanted to have that right reply, Joe. I love you, and we agree most of the time, but I just wanted to sort of bit of context around that. Thank you.
Thank you. One final comment or question, because I realise that we have slightly run over time. Georgia hasn't been glaring at me, but I did think I was doing all right.
Thank you, Joe. This is one for you. So Sunset Boulevard, interesting choice, very good. But going back to your, you know, getting the youth and the younger generation involved in theatre, from your perspective, what does that look like? You know, some people don't even go to the theatre. I mean, I've got a daughter who's in performing arts, and so her sister was dragged for competitions. She hates the theatre. You know, there's other people who just don't get that chance to experience theatre. And so Sunset Boulevard, it may not be a thing. How do you reach to that younger generation in your world of getting them in the seats in the first place?
So there's two bits of that. Firstly, is how you engage them and getting them involved in the production. So we offer a tech trainee scheme where we get young people involved. We do a lot of where they learn different elements of technical theatre. We do a lot of work with young assistant director programs as well, so they can get involved in doing that. And we have very proudly a strong cast of amazing young people, and working with a whole mix of others. So that's really important. Having them, being able for them to see them on the stage and backstage, and being involved in productions. And then in terms of the tickets, we go. It's taking a classic. So like recently we did Midsummer Night's Dream. We're doing Sunset Boulevard. They're big classic shows that loads of people know. It's then how you present that in a way that's accessible, in a way that's exciting, that's contemporary, and that's ready for an audience. So when I was teaching, we would have. There's a line from the History Boys where Tatty says the English teachers only teach the books that they enjoyed when they were younger, and it really stuck with me. And I was like, we're not going to do that. You've got to teach young people what's the most exciting thing happening now, because they will then rebel against it and they'll create the next exciting thing. And so if we're teaching them like 10 steps behind, we're presenting work that is just like replicas of things that happened in the 80s, or another traditional production of a Shakespeare show. There's nothing innovative about that. So the show has got to be innovative. It's got to be exciting. It's got to be cutting edge. We could be bold. We could be brave on the island because we haven't got far to fall. And then audiences will get excited by that. When we did Ad Astra and we played loud music before the show started, and it was all carnival vibe, someone said to me, oh, the audiences weren't like that. And I said, well, that's the wrong audience. Ultimately, that is it. And also, we spend so much time pandering to that audience, and they get whatever they want every time they go to that theatre. This is not for you. and it's okay. So we're moving the audiences on, and I'm going to create work for those people. And if you want to enjoy that, it will be brilliant. But also, if you don't like that, then there's plenty of other stuff for you to go and watch. And so it's about making a really exciting, bold, new production and being brave with it. That's going to hopefully get everyone excited, and then back up with getting everybody in that cast engaged and excited to work as many cool young people as you can.
Can you just say that Ad Astra t-shirts will be available?
They're nearly as good as the Sunset Boulevard ones.
You do need to say it through the mic for the people who are joining us via the live stream.
The Ad Astra t-shirts are available online, along with the Shademaker's book. It's a very good book, and all merch.
On that note, I'm going to thank you all very much on the panel for sharing your thoughts, your wisdom with us. Thank you very much, everybody in the room, for doing the same.
Thank you so much. Watch your water. I put in a difficult place.
Perfect kicking spot.
Yeah, kicking spot. Oh, that was the clicker. Don't worry, it's fine. Oh no, it's been. Thank you all so much for a wonderful. Can we have another round of applause? Sorry, just a brilliant panels, speakers. I put in the schedule closing remarks, and I'm finding it quite difficult to know how to remark on today, really. But I hope you've all had an interesting time in finding out about different career pathways, about being innovative, about being collaborative, about being surprising. I'm never going to use that again. Sorry. So it's a learning curve for me as well, and I think that's what's really important. I used to work at Key Arts actually for about 14 years, and what now is called the Clayton Gallery was called the Learning Curve Gallery, and it was really important just to embrace that title. But it's actually named after the person who invented and started that, Jenny Clayton, who sadly passed away. But it was called that because we need to embrace those failures and about risk taking and facing the fear, or as my kids say, you don't face your fear, you ride them. That's from Twisters. They'll love this because they watch YouTube. So, I really do want to make sure that you all embrace that and feel like you've come away from today with more conversations to be had. It's not a full stop, It's going back to Ian's first provocation. We can't have these kind of little sticking plaster initiatives or things that just happen and they begin and then they end. We want to allow it to keep going. So please keep these conversations going. I want to thank the funders for this specific event, Arts, not Arts. That's great. It's been a long day. Arts Fundraising and Philanthropy, thank you very much for their support. They've supported 10 other networks across the UK in developing networking opportunities and finding ways of supporting creatives across the UK. So huge thanks to them, and also our ongoing supporters, Arts Council England, and of course the local authority as well. We couldn't do what we do without you. And we can't do what we do without you guys. So thank you all so much from above my heart. Oh, Michelle. Thank you. So we've got some amazing creative advisors, the wonderful Jeanette Howes here, and also Alys Scott Hawkins that are going to do some one-to-ones that are booked up. Too late, they're all booked up now. So if you've got a slot, they are going to take place just around the corner in a little designated area. And I really want to say a massive thanks as well to Skinny Mammoth for doing this amazing setup. And probably say thank you to White Fibre for giving us amazing broadband speed for today and a superb channel online. So huge thanks to the technology that exists here and And everyone else that I haven't mentioned, Ella, Ottilie, Cllr, and also Sam, you've all been amazing in helping, and Julie, and all of our speakers for today. Another huge thank you. We have got little doggy bags if you want to take any food away. Please do take some food, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.